Hello there, wanderers of the night. Welcome back to Midnight Reddit Tales. We've gathered some of the deepest, most intriguing stories the internet has to hide after dark. If you enjoy these midnight dives, please leave a like, subscribe, and join our nocturnal community. Now let the shadows fall, and let's jump straight into the tales.
Story 1.
I protected my best friend from her own jealousy, for years hid my promotions, cropped my photos, downplayed every single win, and she repaid me by feeding my deepest secrets to a guy at my job so he could humiliate me at work. My lifelong best friend Richie spent years pretending to love me while slowly poisoning every corner of my life. And when she finally latched onto my cousin Darren and built an entire fake identity to trap him into marriage, I had to decide whether loyalty to her was worth watching my own family get destroyed. I chose the truth, and she has not stopped messaging me since. I'm 23 female, and I've known Richie since we were kids. Darren is my 28-year-old cousin who was ready to propose. Jill is the smug guy at my office who became Richie's little informant. And my mom is the only person who told me to stay calm, advice I eventually stopped taking. Richie and I grew up 3 houses apart on the same dead-end street. We shared a desk in 2nd grade, got our first periods the same summer, cried together the night her dad left. She was the person I called before I called my mom. That kind of history doesn't just disappear, it calcifies. It becomes a thing you protect at all costs, even when the cost is yourself. The crack started in college. We went to different schools, mine was out of state, hers was local, and the distance did something to her I didn't fully understand until much later. Every time I'd call and mention a party, a road trip, a professor who liked my work, the line would go quiet for half a second too long before she'd say, "Must be nice." I learned to edit myself. I stopped mentioning the dean's list. I cropped group photos so she wouldn't see the restaurant backgrounds. When I landed a paid internship junior year, I told her it was just filing stuff. I thought I was being kind. I was building a cage. After graduation, I moved back home and got hired at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown. Good salary, real benefits, the kind of job that makes your relatives nod with approval at Thanksgiving. Richie was working part-time at a retail store and taking online classes she kept dropping. I never brought up the gap. Not once. But social media doesn't care about your boundaries. A colleague tagged me in a photo from a team lunch at this upscale Italian place the company took us to after we closed a big account. I was in a blazer holding a glass of wine, laughing at something someone said off camera. It was nothing. It was everything. Richie's text came 40 minutes later. Times, wow, look at you living the corporate dream, LOL asterisk. I typed back something deflective, times it was just a work thing. The pasta was mid, honestly, times, but the energy had already shifted. The next time we hung out, she made a comment about my new bag. Then my nails. Then the way I talk different now, like you think you're better. Each one delivered with a smile, a little laugh, plausible deniability baked in. I absorbed it. I minimized. I told myself she was going through a hard time. Then Jill happened. Joe worked 2 cubicles down from me. He was the kind of guy who collected information the way other people collected sneakers, not because he needed it, but because having it made him feel powerful. He had this habit of leaning against your desk with his arms crossed, smirking like he already knew the punchline to a joke you hadn't heard yet. I didn't know he and Richie had connected online until the morning he sidled up to my desk and said loud enough for 3 people to hear, "So, I heard you have a thing for older guys." Like times, significantly times older. My face went hot. My hands went still on the keyboard. What? Nothing. He held up his palms, grinning. Just something I heard. I had told exactly one person that. One. And I told her at 16, lying on her bedroom floor, trusting her with the kind of confession you only make when you believe someone will guard it with their life. It got worse. A week later, Jill made a comment in the break room about experimenting in high school while looking directly at me. A drunken kiss at a party when I was 17, sloppy, meaningless. Something I'd whispered to Richie in the dark because I was confused and scared, and she was supposed to be safe. She'd given him everything. Every vulnerable, unguarded thing I'd ever handed her. I drove to her house that evening. Didn't call first. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, and I kept rehearsing what I'd say calm, measured the way my mom would want me to handle it. That lasted about 90 seconds after she opened the door. You told Jill about Marcus, about the kiss with Tanya. Are you serious, Richie? Oh my God, here we go. No, here we go. He's saying this stuff at my time's job. Asterisk. People I work with every day. Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with your little corporate image. This isn't about image. These were time's secrets, times I trusted you. She laughed. Actually, laughed. You trust me, you've been hiding your whole life from me for years. The lunches, the promotions, acting like you're still regular when you're out here living some. I hid those things times for times you. That's when her face changed. Something behind her eyes locked shut. You hid them because you think I'm pathetic, she said. You've always thought that. She said that I was labeling her to be jealous and insecure. I realized it was useless talking to her, and she was not going to understand anything. Our friendship was dead, and there was no point in trying to fix it. I said this and raced out of her house. When I was leaving, I saw her mom sitting in the living room, and it was evident she'd been listening to our conversation. If not all of it, she must have heard us yelling at each other, yet she didn't intervene. Even when she saw me leaving her house angrily and in tears, she didn't tell me anything. I'm sure if this happened at my house, my mom would have intervened and tried to pacify the situation between us. I went to my mom after that and told her everything. She asked me if she could talk to Richie about it. I said no because I knew it wouldn't matter. Mom squeezed my hand and said, "Then let it die quietly, baby. Don't give her more ammunition." I listened. For 3 months I listened. And then Richie started dating Darren. My Darren. My cousin who just made senior analyst. My cousin who talked about wanting a wife and kids by 30. My cousin who called me one Sunday afternoon and said, "Hey, I need to ask you something about Richie, and I need you to be completely honest with me." My throat closed, because I already knew what he was going to ask. Darren didn't ease into it. That wasn't his style. He was the kind of man who read contracts line by line and asked the questions nobody wanted to hear at family dinners. So when he called me that Sunday, he didn't circle, he landed. Richie told me she's never been with anyone. Like times anyone, asterisk. She said I'd be her first everything. And I want to believe her, but something's not sitting right. I was standing in my kitchen holding a mug of tea that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. My reflection stared back at me from the microwave door mouth, tight eyes already calculating. "What made you ask me?" I said carefully. "Because you've known her since you were kids. And because last week she spent 45 minutes grilling me about my ex. Where she works, what she looks like, whether I still follow her on anything, and when I asked her the same kind of questions, she got offended. Said there was nothing to tell. That she'd been waiting for someone worth it." He paused. And then she cried. My jaw tightened. That was Richie's signature move, tears as a trapdoor. The moment you got too close to something real, she'd flood the room so you couldn't see the exit. "Darren, why does this matter to you? Like specifically, because I bought a ring last Tuesday." The mug slipped. I caught it against my hip tea sloshing over my fingers. I barely felt it. "You bought a Times ring asterisk. I'm not playing around out here. I'm 28, I want what I want. But I'm not building a life on a lie. So I need you to tell me the truth, even if it's ugly. Asterisk, especially times if it's ugly." I sat down. The chair scraped against the tile, and the sound felt too loud for the decision I was making. My mom's voice floated through my head, "Times let it die quietly, don't give her more ammunition times," and for a moment I almost listened. Almost swallowed it the way I'd been swallowing things for Richie since we were 16. But this was Darren. This was family. And Richie wasn't just hiding a number or softening a timeline. She'd constructed an entire person who didn't exist, and she was selling that person to a man who'd already bought the ring. "She's lying," I said, "about all of it." The silence on his end lasted 4 seconds. I counted. "Tell me." So I did. I told him about Kyle from her job at the movie theater, the guy she dated for 8 months, sophomore year of high school. About the college boyfriend she'd moved in with for a semester before he caught her going through his phone and put her stuff on the porch. About the string of situationships she'd narrate to me over FaceTime during college, each one ending in a blocked number and a story where she was never the problem. And then I opened my Google Drive. I'd kept everything not out of malice, but because I was a digital hoarder and Richie used to send me screenshots of conversations the way other people send memes. Flirty texts she wanted me to decode. Photos from dates she wanted me to rate. Evidence of a full, messy human romantic history that she'd apparently decided to erase the moment she met a man with a senior analyst title and a savings account. I sent Darren 6 screenshots. 2 photos. One video she'd posted to a private story 2 years ago dancing in some guy's kitchen at 2 a.m. Captioned, "Times wifey material if he acts right, asterisk." He didn't say anything for a long time. "Then I appreciate you. I mean that." He hung up. What happened next, I got in pieces from Darren from my aunt from the aftermath that rippled through family group chats for weeks. Darren went to her apartment that night. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He simply asked her to tell him again one more time that she'd never been with anyone. She did. She looked him in the eyes and repeated the lie like it was scripture. Then he told her what he knew. She broke. Not the performative crying she'd perfected, this was different. Gasping, hyperventilating, mascara-streaked, ugly crying while grabbing at his arm. He removed her hand. He took the ring box off her nightstand. She'd been keeping it there, showing it to people already. He asked for the phone he'd bought her. She said she needed to transfer her photos first. He said no. Took it out of her hand, factory reset it in front of her, and walked out. My phone started buzzing at 1147 that night. Text after text, each one more unhinged than the last. Asterisk. You ruined my life. Asterisk. Asterisk. You've always been jealous of me and you know it. Asterisk. Asterisk. I hope you're happy, you evil witch. Asterisk. Asterisk. Darren was the only good thing I had, and you took him because you can't stand to see me win. Asterisk. Asterisk. You're gonna die alone and you deserve it. Asterisk. I read every single one. I felt my pulse in my fingertips, my breath steady, my chest oddly still. I waited for the guilt. I waited for the familiar knot to tighten in my stomach, the one that had kept me editing photos and downplaying promotions and swallowing insults with a smile for years. It didn't come. For the first time, the absence of guilt didn't feel like numbness. It felt like the floor under my feet finally being solid. I didn't respond. Not to any of it. I blocked her number at 12:03 a.m., plugged in my phone, and went to sleep. The next morning, I posted about my promotion. Full photo blazer office, view the whole thing. No cropping, no filter, no apology. The caption was, "Simple times, hard work looks good on me." Asterisk. Richie had spent years making me small enough to stand next to. And I'd let her because I thought shrinking was the same as loving. It wasn't. It was just disappearing slowly enough that nobody noticed, least of all me. She's still out there, 3 houses down, on the same dead-end street. I drive past it sometimes on my way to work. I don't slow down. I don't look. The history between us didn't disappear. She's right about that. But it stopped being something I protect. Some cages you build with kindness, and some truths you tell not to destroy someone, but to finally stop destroying yourself.
Story 2.
I found a positive pregnancy test in my fiance's bathroom. She had never once been intimate with me. She wanted to wait until marriage. So whose baby was it? My younger brother's? Turns out the woman I proposed to, the woman I thought destiny brought back into my life after years apart, only said yes to my ring as a chess move, a way to make my own brother jealous enough to commit to her. Every tearful yes, every sweet moment, every reassurance that I was overthinking, all of it was a performance, and I was the only one in the audience who believed it was real. I'm 28 male, and until recently I thought I was living a fairy tale. My fiancée is Selena. My brother is John, 24, charming, reckless, and apparently the man she actually wanted. My mom is Barbara, my dad is Gerald, and then there's Selena's parents Rosa and Miguel, who got dragged into this disaster right alongside mine. Let me take you back to where it started, or restarted, I should say. Selena and I dated for 2 years in college. Young love, the kind that burns clean and bright and makes you believe the universe actually cares about your happiness. We broke up because she transferred to a school 3 states away, and long distance chewed us apart slowly like rust on iron. No drama, no betrayal, just geography and bad timing. I grieved that relationship the way you grieve a death. Quietly for years. Fast forward 5 years. I'm 27, living in the same city as my parents, working in finance. And John Goldenboy, John is throwing one of his infamous bar parties. I almost didn't go. I wish I hadn't. She was standing near the pool table laughing at something someone said, and the sound hit me like a car wreck. Selena. Same dark curls, same way she tilted her head when she listened. My chest caved in. She saw me at the same moment, and her eyes went wide. And I genuinely thought, times, this is the universe correcting its mistake. Asterisk. We talked for 3 hours that night. She'd moved to the city 8 months ago. She was working in pharmaceutical sales. She attended the same church as Rosa, her mother, every Sunday. She told me she hadn't dated seriously since college, that she'd been waiting for something real. She looked at me when she said it. I didn't ask how she knew John. I didn't ask why she was at his party. I was too busy drowning in the miracle of it. We dated for 4 months before I proposed. I know fast. But it didn't feel fast. It felt like a continuation, like pressing play on a paused movie. Selena was everything I remembered, and more. She was devout, gentle, intentional. She told me she wanted to wait until marriage to be intimate, and I respected that completely. I admired it. Here was a woman with conviction in a world that mocked it. I proposed at my parents' house during Sunday dinner. Got on one knee between the pot roast and the pecan pie. Barbara cried. Gerald shook my hand and said, "About time, son." Selena covered her mouth, tears streaming, and whispered, "Times yes, times like it was a prayer." John clapped from across the table. Smiled wide. Said, "Welcome to the family, sis." Something about the way he said times, sis times, made my jaw tighten. I ignored it. Here's the thing about red flags. They don't announce themselves with sirens. They whisper. And if you're desperate enough for the fairy tale, you learn to mistake whispers for wind. The first whisper came 2 weeks after the engagement. Beach party with friends. Music coolers, bonfire. I was grabbing drinks when I turned around and saw Selena sitting on John's lap, grinding to the music, while everyone laughed. A lap dance, people called it. Playful. Harmless. John had his hands up in mock surrender, grinning like it was the funniest thing in the world. Selena caught my eyes and hopped off immediately, jogging over to kiss my cheek. "Babe, relax. It's a joke. He's literally your brother." My throat was dry the rest of the night. Then the small things started compounding. Selena's phone lived face down on every surface. She turned off mobile data when I was around. I noticed because her WhatsApp status never updated in my presence, but showed online minutes after I left. I didn't know her password. I never asked because asking felt like an accusation and accusing felt like losing her again. Her texts to me became dry, functional. Asterisk, okay. Sure. Busy today. Asterisk, meanwhile, I'd suggest dinner or a movie and she'd decline, saying she was tired, had cramps, was helping Rosa with church prep. Twice I called her and John simultaneously, and both phones went to voicemail at the exact same second. I told myself it was coincidence. I told myself a lot of things. Then one Tuesday evening, I drove past Selena's apartment to drop off a jacket she'd left at my place. John's car was parked outside. Black Mustang custom plates, unmistakable. I sat in my car for 11 minutes, engine running, hands shaking before I drove home. I asked her about John's arrival the next day at dinner, but she didn't talk about him and instead served the meal, which felt tasteless because I kept thinking about that and many questions started coming into my head. I couldn't stop but ask Selena about John. She replied very casually that, yeah, John was not feeling well, so he dropped by to get some meds. I couldn't sleep the whole night after that, thinking about what might be the case behind her acting like that. After everything that was happening, I kept questioning whether my doubts were true, or I was overthinking it, because she had already reassured me, and if I asked again, she would think I was spying on her. I wanted all of these thoughts to go away as they were making a negative review of Selena in my mind. She seemed suspicious to me by the way she acted. She always had an explanation. Always calm. Always reasonable. And I always felt insane afterward. 3 weeks later, I decided to surprise her. I bought her favorite macaroons from the French bakery downtown and a bouquet of white peonies, her wedding flowers, she'd said. I let myself in with the spare key she'd given me. Selena was on the couch reading. She looked up, startled, then smiled. We sat together, her head on my shoulder, the macaroons open between us. And for 20 perfect minutes, I believed every lie I'd been telling myself. Then I excused myself to the bathroom. And there, sitting next to the dustbin, not even inside it, just times next to times it, like she'd tossed it carelessly or in a panic, was a white plastic stick with 2 unmistakable pink lines. I stood in that bathroom for what felt like a geological age. The stick sat there almost casual in its violence, 2 pink lines bright as neon against the white plastic casing. My brain did what brains do when reality fractures it tried to build a bridge. Asterisk, maybe it's old. Maybe it's a friend's. Maybe there's a medical explanation. Asterisk. But my body already knew. My hands gripped the sink basin until my knuckles turned the color of bone. My reflection stared back at me, a man watching himself understand something he'd understood for months. She wanted to wait until marriage. She wanted to times wait. Asterisk. I picked up the test. It was still damp in the results window. Hours old, maybe less. I turned it over in my hands like a grenade, with the pin already pulled, and something inside my chest didn't break it, times calcified. Asterisk. Every whisper I'd mistaken for wind became a scream. The lap dance. The face-down phone. The simultaneous voicemails. John's black Mustang parked outside her apartment on a Tuesday night for times meds. Asterisk. I walked back into the living room. Selena was eating a macaroon, legs tucked beneath her, looking like a painting of someone who deserved to be loved. She glanced up. You okay? You look pale. I held up the test. Didn't say a word. The macaroon stopped halfway to her mouth. Her face cycled through expressions like a slot machine: surprise, confusion, fear, and then something I'd never seen on her before. Calculation. Pure mechanical calculation as she measured her options in real time. That's what I was going to tell you. I just found out today, and I was scared, and We've never slept together, Selena. The sentence landed like a brick through a window. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. The silence between us grew teeth. I can explain. You can't. I pocketed the test, picked up the peonies I'd brought her, and dropped them in the trash can on my way out. She called my name 3 times. I didn't turn around. I didn't go home. I drove to my parents' house and sat in the driveway for 40 minutes, engine off, forehead against the steering wheel, breathing like I'd been running. Then I called Barbara and told her to gather everyone for dinner the following Sunday. Both families. I told her it was about the wedding. She heard something in my voice and didn't press. The 6 days between that bathroom and that dinner were the longest of my life. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I functioned at work the way a machine functions. Inputs, outputs, no soul behind the operation. Selena texted me 19 times. I read every single one without responding. They escalated from casual to pleading to furious to casual again, which told me everything about how many times she'd rehearsed deception. Sunday arrived like a sentencing. Gerald had set the long table. Barbara made her brisket. Rosa and Miguel sat stiffly on one side, Miguel's jaw set in that permanent disapproval I used to resent but now recognized as prophecy. John sat at the end, phone in hand, radiating the bored confidence of someone who'd never once been held accountable for anything. Selena sat across from me in a white blouse rosary, visible at her collarbone eyes, darting between me and John with a frequency that would have been invisible to me 6 months ago. I waited until everyone was served. Then, I placed the pregnancy test in the center of the table next to the breadbasket, like a centerpiece. Selena's pregnant, I said. The baby isn't mine. We've never been intimate. She asked to wait until marriage. I looked at John. Congratulations. The table didn't erupt. At times imploded. Asterisk Rosa's hand went to her mouth. Miguel stood up so fast his chair hit the wall. Barbara looked at John with an expression I will never forget. Not anger, not shock, but time's recognition. Asterisk. The look of a woman who'd always known what her son was and had spent decades pretending otherwise. John laughed. Actually laughed. Bro, you're being... Don't. Gerald's voice quiet as a closing door. Don't you dare. Selena started crying. Beautiful practiced tears. It's not what you think. I love you. I was confused. You accepted my proposal to make him jealous. I said it flatly because Rosa had called me 2 days earlier sobbing, having found messages on Selena's iPad. Messages where Selena told a friend the engagement was leverage that once John saw her with a ring, he'd finally commit. Rosa read them to me verbatim, her voice breaking on every word, and I'd sat on my kitchen floor holding the phone and thought, times. She always had an explanation. Always calm. Always reasonable. And I always felt insane afterward. Asterisk. Your mother showed me the messages. Every moment was a performance. Every prayer, every promise, every tear at this table, when I got on one knee, all of it was for times him. Asterisk. Selena looked at Rosa. Rosa couldn't meet her eyes. Miguel grabbed his coat and walked out without a word. He tried to stop the engagement. Nobody listened. The aftermath was ugly and swift. Both families pressured John and Selena into marriage. John's response was a consultation with an abortion clinic and a text that read, "Times, not my problem." Asterisk Barbara wept for days. Gerald called John, once told him he was no longer welcome in their home, and hung up. John moved to Miami 3 weeks later. He didn't seem bothered. Selena kept the baby. She became a single mother at 26, living with Rosa, attending the same church where she'd built her image of purity. Miguel barely spoke to her. The community whispered. The rosary stayed at her collarbone. I left the country. Took a transfer to our London office, packed one suitcase, and boarded a plane with a prescription for sertraline and a therapist's number saved in my phone. I didn't tell anyone goodbye except Barbara, who held me in the doorway and said, "I'm sorry, I raised him like that." And I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't listen to myself." People tell you that destiny brings people back into your life for a reason. They're right. But they never warn you that the reason might be destruction. That the universe doesn't only return gifts, sometimes it returns tests dressed in dark curls and Sunday dresses and whispered times, yeses, times that were never meant for you. I loved her twice. I lost her twice. The first time, geography took her. The second time, the truth did. And the truth, unlike distance, doesn't leave you with the mercy of wondering times, what if? Asterisk. It just leaves you knowing.
Story 3.
My brother walked into my bakery last month to make a sales pitch. And the second he saw me behind the counter, he turned white, grabbed his briefcase, and walked out without saying a single word. Because 12 years ago, he told me I was dead to him for being just a janitor. The janitor who paid for his entire college education. So here's the short version. I dropped out of school at 17 to scrub floors and mow lawns so my little brother could get his degree. He repaid me by erasing me from his life. And when he finally resurfaced, it was because his company needed my business. Except he didn't know the bakery owner he was pitching to was me. I'm Janet, 31 female. My husband is Marcus. My brother is Alan, he's 29. And his wife Priya, well, she's the one who finally told me the lies he'd been telling about me all along. But to understand why my brother's face drained of color that morning, you need to go back to where it started. To the apartment that smelled like pine sol and lavender fabric softener, because those were the two scents my mother carried home on her skin every single night. Our mom, Gloria, cleaned office buildings. She cleaned them 6 days a week, sometimes 7, and she believed, with a faith that bordered on religious, that education was the only door worth knocking on. She couldn't give us much, but she gave us that belief. She drilled it into both of us. I was 15 when she first got sick. Lupus, the doctors said, though, it took months of misdiagnosis before anyone bothered to listen to a cleaning woman describe her own symptoms accurately. By the time I was 16, she couldn't work full shifts anymore. By 17, she couldn't work at all. Alan was 15 then. Bright. Genuinely bright, the kind of kid teachers pulled aside to talk about scholarships and potential. Mom would light up talking about his grades. And I'd light up watching her light up. So, when the math stopped working, rent plus medical bills plus groceries minus one income, I did the only thing that made sense to me. I dropped out. Took over Mom's cleaning contracts. Added lawn care on weekends because a neighbor offered me his old push mower. I was 17 hauling a vacuum cleaner onto the 6:15 a.m. bus. Scrubbing bathroom tiles in office parks until my knuckles cracked and bled. Then coming home to make sure Alan had dinner and a quiet place to study. He didn't ask me to do this. I want to be clear about that. He didn't ask. But he also didn't say no. Mom died when I was 19, quietly in a hospital bed I was still making payments on 2 years later. Alan was 17. I became his legal guardian. I kept cleaning, he kept studying. And for a while, a brief fragile, while we were okay. Sad, broken, but okay. He'd sometimes leave a note on the kitchen counter times, "Thanks for dinner, Jay." Asterisk, small thing. Meant the world. He got into a good college. Not Ivy League, but solid with partial financial aid that covered maybe 40%. The rest was me. Every tuition installment, every textbook, every meal plan, payment that was floor polish and grass clippings converted into his future. I kept a notebook where I tracked what I spent. Not because I wanted him to repay me dollar for dollar, but because Mom would have wanted to see the numbers. To know it was going somewhere. The first year, Alan called every Sunday. The second year, every other week. By junior year, I was lucky to get a text back. I told myself it was normal. College kids get busy. They grow up, grow out. I told myself a lot of things. Then came Tiffany. I met her exactly once. I'd taken the train to visit Alan for his birthday, brought a homemade cake because I couldn't afford a bakery one, which is ironic now. I found them at a cafe near campus. Tiffany was blonde immaculate, the kind of girl who looked like she'd never touched a sponge in her life. Alan introduced me as Janet with no context. Not my sister. Not the person putting me through school. Just Janet. I extended my hand. Tiffany looked at it then at Alan and laughed. Not a mean laugh, worse. A confused one. Like she couldn't process why this person was touching her. On the subway platform afterward, I overheard them. They didn't know I was still within earshot, or maybe they didn't care. Tiffany's voice carried the way entitled voices do. She stinks of detergent, Alan, like literally. Is she your Times, Made Times or something? I waited for him to correct her. My fingers tightened around the cake box. She's nobody, he said. Just someone my mom used to know. My legs went numb. I stood on that platform for 2 full trains before I could move. Things deteriorated fast after that. Alan stopped answering calls entirely. When he did pick up, he was clipped, irritated, like I was a telemarketer interrupting his real life. After graduation, he got a corporate sales job, entry level, but he talked about it like he'd been appointed CEO. I called to congratulate him. He let it ring. 6 months later, I called to ask gently, carefully about the money. Not all of it. Not even most. I was behind on rent. I just needed enough to cover 2 months while I picked up extra shifts. He laughed. Actually laughed. Then he said the words, I still hear when I can't sleep. You won a reward for mopping floors. That was your choice, Janet. I didn't make you drop out. Don't put your failures on me, and honestly, stop calling. You're dead to me. He hung up. Changed his number. Moved without forwarding an address. I was 20 years old. For the next 11 years, I had no brother. I had bleach raw hands and a push mower, and eventually, Marcus, who walked into a diner where I was cleaning tables and asked me with total sincerity what the best thing on the menu was. I told him the coffee was terrible. He ordered 2 cups. Marcus was delivering for a food logistics company when we started dating. And he's the one who first tasted my banana bread and said, you need to sell this. It was only last year that we were able to rent out a small bakery corner of our own. It might sound like a fairy tale, but trust me, it wasn't. There were times when we had to sleep on empty stomachs because we didn't get any orders in a week. It took its own sweet time to click, but I'm really grateful for everything we have now. I was a cleaner with no parents but a narcissistic brother who despised me and abandoned me. Now I have something of my own. I have a husband and a 3-year-old daughter. What else could I have asked for? So when Alan walked into my bakery 4 weeks ago with a company lanyard and a rehearsed pitch about wholesale cleaning supply contracts for small businesses, when he looked up from his tablet, saw my face, and went, the color of old paper I understood something with perfect clarity. He hadn't come to find me. He'd been assigned my account. He left that day without a word. But 3 days later, he came back. And this time, he didn't leave quietly. He came back on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays are when I do the cinnamon rolls and the whole shop smells like butter and brown sugar, and my regulars know to show up early. Alan walked in at 10:40 a.m. wearing a different suit than the first time, sharper, darker like armor. He didn't look at me. He walked straight to the counter, set a stack of paperwork down, and addressed my employee Keisha, who was boxing up a dozen muffins for a church order. I need to speak with the business owner regarding a supply contract. The Times, actual Times decision maker. Keisha looked at me. I was 3 feet away restocking napkin dispensers. That's her, Keisha said. Alan's jaw worked like he was chewing glass. He still wouldn't turn his head. He spoke to the air between us, this bizarre middle distance, as if acknowledging me directly would cost him something he couldn't afford. I've been assigned this account. I'm going to need you to sign the onboarding documents and confirm your quarterly supply needs. This is strictly professional. Alan, I said. Just his name. Quiet. Something cracked behind his eyes. Not softness, pressure. The kind that builds before an explosion. Don't, he said. Don't do that. Don't say my name like you know me. You're a client. Sign the paperwork, or don't. Two of my regulars were sitting by the window. Mrs. Okafor had her granddaughter on her lap. They were both watching. I'm not signing anything, I said. And you should go. That's when he threw the folder. Not at me, onto the counter hard enough that the pages fanned out and one slid into the muffin display. His voice went up a full register. You think you can play games with me. You think because you run some little times, cake shop times, you're somebody. Now, I have a quota. I have accounts across this entire district. You are a line item, Janet. You are a times line item. Asterisk. My hands were steady. I noticed that with a kind of detached surprise. 11 years ago, his voice could make my whole body flinch. Now I was standing behind my own counter in my own shop, and my hands were steady. Get out of my store, I said. Don't come back. He left. Knocked over the tip jar on his way out. Quarters rolled across the tile like small fleeing things. Keisha looked at me. Who times was times that... Nobody, I said. And then I heard the echo of that word, his word, from a subway platform 12 years ago, and I had to go sit in the back room for 10 minutes with my face in my hands. Marcus found out that evening. Not because I told him, because Keisha told him. She'd been worried enough to text him, and when he came home and saw my face, he didn't ask if I was okay. He knew better. He sat next to me on the couch, put his hand on the back of my neck, and said, "Tell me everything." So I did. What Marcus did next, he did, without asking my permission, and I'll be honest, I'm still deciding how I feel about that. He called every bakery owner and small business contact we'd built relationships with over the past year. You know, I wasn't even good with writing on the internet stuff until very recently. When we opened our shop, other local shop owners suggested that we create our online page and all. Yes, we paid someone to do that, but I had to learn the skill. The point is, we'd built a real network. Small business owners talk. They protect each other. Marcus told them what happened, that a sales rep had come into our shop, thrown paperwork, screamed at me in front of customers. He had the CCTV footage. He filed a formal complaint with Alan's company. Within 2 weeks, 4 businesses in our district severed their contracts. Alan's company launched an internal review. He was terminated. He called me from an unknown number at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. My daughter was asleep in the next room. "You witch," he said. His voice was ragged wet. "You vindictive, jealous witch. You couldn't stand seeing me succeed, could you? You had to drag me down to your level. Alan, I times built times myself. Everything I have, I earned. You mopped floors. That's all you ever did. And now you've destroyed my career because you can't handle..." "Mom's money," I said. "My money." My knuckles cracking open every winter. "My education, Alan. I gave you mine." Silence. Then, "You chose that?" I hung up. His wife called the next day. Priya. Soft voice, careful words, a baby crying in the background. She told me Alan had said I was an estranged relative who'd stolen money from their mother. that I'd been the one to cut times and times off, that I was jealous of his success, and had harassed him for years. She said, "I just want to know what's true." I told her. All of it. The cleaning contracts, the tuition payments, the notebook I still had in a drawer. She was quiet for a long time. "He told me he had no family," she finally said. Then he told me he had family, but they were toxic. I'm starting to understand which version is real. Before she hung up, she asked if there was anything Alan could do. Any path forward? He can apologize, I said. Not to get his job back. Not to fix anything. Just to say it. Just once. Priya said she'd tell him. That was 3 weeks ago. He hasn't called. I still have the notebook. The one where I tracked every dollar, tuition, textbooks, meal plans, the winter coat he needed sophomore year. The pages are soft now, the ink fading. Sometimes I open it and run my thumb across Mom's handwriting in the margins because she'd started it before she got too sick to hold a pen. Little notes times Alan's biology textbook, $84. Worth every penny. My boy. Asterisk. My boy. I don't want revenge. I never did. What I wanted was for my brother to look at me and see what Mom would have seen, someone who kept the promise. Someone who held the family together with pine sol and grass clippings in 17-year-old hands. You can't do that. Maybe he never could. Maybe the shame of where he came from is so enormous that I'll always be the living proof he needs to destroy. I pray I never see him again. Not because I hate him, because every time he appears, the hope comes back. That stupid, stubborn hope that this time he'll say times, "Thank you, Jay," asterisk. And when he doesn't, it's not just today's wound. It's every wound reopened in sequence all the way back to that subway platform. My daughter's name is Gloria. She's 3. She likes to help at the bakery by putting sprinkles on things that don't need sprinkles. Marcus lifts her onto the counter, and she waves at customers like she owns the place. She does, in a way. This whole thing, the shop, the life, the family, it grew from a push mower and a dropped-out girl and a mother who believed in doors worth knocking on. I built my door. I walked through it. I'm not waiting on the other side for anyone.
Story 4.
My wife slept with my stepdad to steal a mansion she thought he owned. Plot twist, my dead mother left that mansion to me, and the only reason my wife didn't know that is because I lied about it years ago. One stupid lie I told sent this woman crawling into a 60-year-old stranger's bed, destroying everything she had for a house she would have gotten for free just by being a decent human being. So let me break this down for you. I'm a 38-year-old guy just trying to grieve my mother in peace. My wife is Celia, also 38, and I thought I knew her until I really got to know her. Andrew is my stepdad, early 60s, a man I barely had 2 conversations with in my life. And then there's my boy Keith, my best friend, loyal to a fault but absolutely useless when it comes to technology. Now let me take you back to the day everything started unraveling. It was a Tuesday in March when I saw them. I wasn't supposed to be on that road. My usual route to the client site was under construction, so I took the detour through Millbrook, a nothing town 40 minutes from where we lived. There was a little roadside cafe with a green awning, the kind of place truckers stop at for bad coffee and decent pie, and I glanced over because I was looking for a gas station. That's when I saw Celia. She was sitting at a window booth leaning across the table, her hand resting on top of another hand. Not just resting, her fingers were interlocked with his. And she was laughing. That full-body laugh she used to save for me back when we were dating, the one where she tilts her head back and touches her collarbone. The man across from her was Andrew, my dead mother's husband. I pulled over so fast I nearly clipped a mailbox. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I sat there for maybe 3 minutes, engine running, watching through the cafe window like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. Andrew reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Celia leaned into it. I drove away before they could see me. Now let me give you context, because without it, this makes no sense. My mother married Andrew about 6 years before she passed. I never understood the relationship. Andrew was quiet, unremarkable, the kind of man who fades into the wallpaper at his own birthday party. My mother was a force of nature, a single mom who worked 2 jobs, put me through school, and somehow inherited a sprawling mansion from her uncle that she maintained with sheer willpower and duct tape. When she married Andrew, I asked her once, "Mom, why him?" She just smiled and said, "He doesn't take up too much space, baby. Sometimes that's enough." I respected it. But I never bonded with Andrew. After Mom died, we exchanged maybe 3 texts. One was him asking if I wanted a box of her old books. The other 2 were holiday obligation. So the idea that my wife was sitting in a cafe 40 minutes from home holding this man's hand, it didn't compute. When Celia got home that evening, I was sitting on the couch pretending to watch ESPN. "How was your day?" I asked. "Boring. Errands. Target. You know." She dropped her purse on the counter without looking at me. "Where'd you go for lunch?" "Just grab something at home?" She didn't even flinch. That's what got me. Not the lie itself, the ease of it. Like she'd been rehearsing. I let it go. Sat on it for 2 weeks. Watched her. She started taking calls in the bathroom with the faucet running. She bought new underwear, the kind she hadn't worn for me in years. And then unprompted, she brought up Andrew at dinner. "You know, we should invite Andrew for Thanksgiving. He's probably lonely. Your mom would have wanted that." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. "Andrew?" "Yes. He's family, technically. We've never invited him for anything." "Exactly. That's sad, don't you think?" I looked at her across the table and something cold settled at my chest. She held my gaze with this practiced softness, this manufactured compassion, and I realized I was looking at a stranger. "Sure," I said. "Let's invite Andrew." Thanksgiving was 6 weeks away. That gave me time. I told Celia I had a work trip the week of Thanksgiving, a conference in Denver that I absolutely could not miss. She protested for about 4 seconds before saying, "That's fine, I'll handle the dinner." Andrew shouldn't be alone on the holiday. I bet he shouldn't. I bought a GPS tracker and stuck it under her car. I called Keith. "I need you to do something for me, and I need you to not ask questions." "Brother, the last time you said that, I ended up in a canoe at 3 a.m. This is worse. I need you to go to my house on Thanksgiving. Celia's going to have Andrew over. I need you to walk in unannounced and record whatever you see." Silence. Then, "You think she's..." "I don't think. I know. I just need proof." Keith showed up on Thanksgiving with his phone. God bless that man, he's been my ride or die since 7th grade, but technology is his kryptonite. He walked into my house using the spare key, heard noises from the bedroom, pushed the door open and saw them. Naked. Together. In my bed. He hit record. On himself. 37 seconds of Keith's horrified face in selfie mode audio, of him screaming, "Oh, what? And then the sound of him running into a wall on his way out. No footage of Celia, no footage of Andrew, just Keith's left nostril and the sound of chaos. But I didn't need the video. Keith called me hyperventilating, and the tremor in his voice told me everything. "Brother, I saw it. I saw everything. I'm going to need therapy." That was my confirmation. I ghosted Celia for 3 days. Didn't answer calls, didn't respond to texts. Let her marinate in the silence. Then I contacted a divorce lawyer and had papers drawn up. When I finally sat down with Celia in the lawyer's conference room, she didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She leaned back in her chair and said something that made my lawyer's pen stop moving. "I did it to protect us. Andrew inherited your mother's wealth. Do you see the complexities in this family dynamics? I stared at her. Someone had to secure that mansion, and you clearly weren't going to do it. So I did what I had to do. I was feeling dizzy with her BS, so I stormed out of the meeting room. I stood in the hallway with my hands on my knees, breathing like I'd sprinted a mile. She slept with him for the house. Not lust. Not loneliness. The mansion. After I came back, my lawyer asked for the details of the conversation. I told him everything. He cracked up for a moment, but he was interested in knowing about the inheritance my mother had left. Here's where it gets complicated, and where my one stupid lie comes back to haunt everyone. My mom had left a house that she had inherited from her uncle. It was a huge mansion, way beyond my means. Interestingly, Celia always had an eye on that mansion. After our marriage, she even insisted that we move into the mansion. I was happy that Celia wanted to move in with my mother, but no, Celia wanted my mom to move out to my apartment, and we took up her mansion. I denied it. It was her house. Why should she leave? Celia said. You're the only son of your mother. That house is going to be yours eventually. That sentence lived in my head for years. When Mom died, the will was clear. The mansion went to me. But I was so disgusted by how eager Celia had always been about that property that I told her it went to Andrew. A throwaway lie. A test, maybe. I wanted to see if she'd grieve my mother or grieve the house. She grieved the house. And apparently she did a lot more than grieve. Now Celia sat across from me in that conference room, smug arms crossed, believing she had leverage. Believing Andrew was her golden ticket. She leaned forward and said the words that made me want to laugh and scream at the same time. Think carefully about this divorce. You're losing a lot more than you realize. I looked at my lawyer. My lawyer looked at me. And for the first time in months, I smiled. I signed the papers that afternoon. My lawyer kept glancing at me like he was waiting for me to hesitate, to waver, to do the thing men do when they still love the woman sitting across the table. But I didn't love the woman sitting across the table. I loved the woman I thought she was 3 years ago, and that woman had never existed. Celia signed too, but she signed like someone humoring a child. Casual. Dismissive. She even smiled at me on her way out, this pitying little curve of her lips that said, "Times you'll regret this." Asterisk. The finalization took 4 weeks. 4 weeks of Celia texting me articles about conscious uncoupling and mature co-separation, as if she were the enlightened one and I was the fool stumbling away from paradise. She never once asked me to reconsider because she loved me. Every attempt was framed around what I was times losing. Asterisk. The day the divorce was finalized, I sat in my car in the courthouse parking lot and pulled out my phone. I stared at Andrew's contact for a long time. The last text between us was from 14 months ago, him asking if I wanted Mom's old books. I typed slowly. Asterisk, Andrew. I thought you should know. Celia didn't pursue you because she was attracted to you. She told me in front of my lawyer that she slept with you to secure my mother's mansion. She believed you inherited it. She was using you to get the house. I'm sorry you got caught up in this. Asterisk. I hit send. Then I added one more line. Asterisk. The mansion was never yours. Mom left it to me. Asterisk. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then nothing. For 20 minutes, nothing. Finally, times I don't understand. Asterisk. Asterisk. She thought you owned the house. She was sleeping with you to get you to sign it over to her or marry her. That was the entire play. Asterisk. No response after that. Not for 2 hours. Then a single text times. She told me you didn't care about me. She said you'd never visit. She She said she was the only family I had left. Asterisk. I put the phone down and pressed my palms into my eyes until I saw white. Andrew was 62 years old. A quiet man who didn't take up too much space. And Celia had walked into his loneliness like she was filling a void when really she was just measuring the square footage. That evening, I called Celia. She picked up on the first ring. Finally coming to your senses. I told Andrew. Silence. The kind of silence that has texture, thick, suffocating alive. Told him what? Everything. What you said in the conference room? That you slept with him for the mansion? That it was a transaction? You're lying. I also told him the mansion was never his. More silence. I could hear her breathing change, quicken the way someone breathes when the floor starts tilting. What do you mean it was never his? Mom left it to me, Celia. It was always mine. I told you it went to Andrew because I wanted to see what you'd do. And you showed me. The scream that came through the phone was not a word. It was a sound, guttural, raw, the noise a person makes when they realize they've burned down their own house and they're still standing inside it. Then the words came tumbling over each other. You lied to me. I degraded myself with that. Man, do you understand what I did? I let him, for nothing you, sat there and watched me. No. You sat there and chose. Nobody made you do anything. I did it for us. You did it for a building. She hung up. I sat in the silence of my apartment and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not joy. Not satisfaction. Just the absence of weight. Like someone had been standing on my chest and finally stepped off. The aftermath was not clean. Celia showed up at my apartment the next morning at 6 a.m., mascara streaked. Still in the clothes from the night before. She pounded on the door until my neighbor threatened to call the police. When I opened it, she pushed past me and stood in my kitchen vibrating. We can fix this. I'll go to counseling. I'll do whatever. We're divorced, Celia. Papers don't mean... They mean exactly what they mean. She showed up at my office 2 days later, then my gym, then the coffee shop where I went every Saturday morning. Each time, the pitch changed. First, it was reconciliation. Then guilt times your mother would be ashamed of you. Asterisk. Then threats times I'll tell everyone what kind of man lies to his own wife. Asterisk. Then back to pleading. I filed for a restraining order. Meanwhile, I transferred the mansion into my name, officially hired a contractor, and spent 3 months renovating it. New kitchen. Refinished hardwood. Fresh paint in the color my mother always wanted, but never got around to a warm sage green she'd circled in a magazine I found in her bedside drawer. I rented it to a young family. A couple with 2 kids and a golden retriever. The rent was double what my apartment cost. Every month that deposit hit my account like a quiet inheritance, my mother still providing, still taking care of me from wherever she was. Celia found out about the tenants. Of course she did. She drove to the mansion and knocked on the door, told the wife she was the owner's spouse and needed access to the property. The cleaning crew I'd hired happened to be there that day. They escorted her out. She stood on the lawn screaming at a house that was never hers, never going to be hers, a house she'd sold her dignity to claim. The restraining order was granted the following week. Last I heard, Andrew blocked her number. She moved in with her sister 2 towns over. No husband, no house, no stepdad, no scheme left to run. Sometimes I drive past the mansion on my way home from work. I slow down and look at the sage green walls, the trimmed hedges, the toys scattered on the porch. And I think about my mother, a single mom who worked 2 jobs, who held that house together with willpower and duct tape, who married a man because he didn't take up too much space. She left me everything she had. And the woman who married me for it ended up with nothing at all. Mama always did have the last word.
Story 5.
My school made a bully and a thief the head girl, so my best friend and I exposed her on Instagram Live, and now the administration is punishing us for it. So I moved across the country to this prestigious boarding school in California, got stuck with a roommate from actual hell who watched her get promoted to the top student leadership position while she was literally stealing my clothes out of my closet. And when the adults refused to do anything about it, my best friend and I set up a 2-camera trap that caught her confessing to everything on a live stream that went viral before the warden even made it down the hallway. I'm 17 female and way too far from home. My roommate is Nancy, everyone calls her Mancy, and she runs that hostel like a dictator with a smile. My best friend Melissa is the only reason I didn't lose my mind. Jack is this quiet guy I had a crush on, which Mancy obviously weaponized. Gloria is our warden who chose peace over justice every single time. And Mr. Whitfield is our principal who only cares about the school's reputation, which is exactly why this whole thing got so ugly. The first night she rearranged my side of the room. I hadn't even finished unpacking. My suitcase was still open on the bed, clothes half folded, and I'd gone down the hall to find the bathroom. 3 minutes. Maybe 4. When I came back, Nancy had moved my suitcase to the floor, shifted my desk lamp to the windowsill, and was sitting cross-legged on Times My Times bed, flipping through the journal I'd tucked under my pillow. My diary. You write a lot about missing home, she said, not even looking up. That's kind of sad. My throat closed. I stood in the doorway with my toothbrush in my hand and my stomach somewhere around my knees, and I didn't say a word. She smiled this wide, generous smile that I'd later learned she kept holstered like a weapon and tossed the journal onto my pillow. Relax. I'm just getting to know my roommate. That was day 1. By the end of the first week, she knew I was allergic to peanuts. By the end of the second, she was leaving open peanut butter jars on the shared nightstand. When I asked her to stop, she laughed and told Gloria I was being dramatic about a sandwich spread. Gloria told me to keep my EpiPen accessible and try to be more flexible. Flexible? I called my mom that night and cried so hard I couldn't breathe. She told me to give it time. My dad said the school cost too much to quit over a roommate. They weren't wrong about the money. They were wrong about everything else. Mancy operated on a system. I figured it out slowly, the way you figure out your sunburn by the time you notice the damage is already done. With teachers and staff, she was deferential, articulate, helpful. She volunteered for every committee. She remembered Gloria's birthday. She called Mr. Whitfield sir with this earnest little head tilt that made him beam. With students, she was a different species entirely. She'd pick 1 girl per week to publicly dismantle a comment about weight in the dining hall, a rumor about someone's scholarship status, whispered just loud enough. If you fought back, she cried, actual tears. And then she'd show up at Gloria's office. With a scratch on her arm she definitely put there herself, and suddenly times were the problem. 2 girls had tried to report her before I arrived. Both got written up for harassment. I learned this from Melissa, who told me on the bleachers one afternoon while Mancy held court across the quad. Surrounded by girls who laughed at her jokes, with the desperate energy of hostages. She makes everyone's lives a living hell, Melissa said flatly. And they gave her a badge for it. Because that's exactly what happened. 6 weeks into the semester, Mancy was appointed head girl. Asterisk. Head girl. Asterisk. I remember standing in the assembly hall when Mr. Whitfield announced it, watching Mancy walk to the stage in her pressed blazer and feeling something crack behind my ribs. Not surprise. Something worse. The confirmation that the system wasn't broken, it was working exactly as designed, just not for people like me. The power went to her head like gasoline on a brush fire. Within days, she'd removed my name from the annual function performer list. I'd been selected for a solo vocal piece, and suddenly I wasn't on the roster anymore. When I asked the coordinator, she shrugged and said Mancy had restructured the program. Then came the dance. Jack and I had been paired by our performing arts teacher, and I'd spent 2 weeks trying not to combust every time his hand touched my waist during rehearsal. He was quiet, painfully quiet, the kind of boy who communicated in half smiles and looked at the floor when he was nervous. I liked him so much it made my teeth hurt. Mancy told him the teachers had reassigned the pairs. Told him she was his new partner. He didn't question it. Why would he? She was head girl. I found out when I showed up to rehearsal and saw her hand on his shoulder, her eyes flicking to mine with a look that said, "Times I know exactly what I'm doing, asterisk." I went back to the room and sat on my bed and stared at the wall for 45 minutes. Then my bag disappeared. Not a school bag. The leather crossbody I'd saved 8 months of birthday money and tutoring cash to buy. Gone from my closet hook, like it had evaporated. It started with my bag, but soon a number of my other things also started disappearing. My clothes, my makeup, a silver bracelet my grandmother gave me. And I wasn't alone. Girls across the hostel were losing stuff. Chargers, perfume, a cashmere scarf. Of course I suspected Mancy. No one else came to our room other than Mancy and her minions. Melissa said what I was already thinking. You know, she stole your things. Why wouldn't she? She'd do it just to get to you. But suspecting and proving are different countries, and Mancy had diplomatic immunity. Then she made a mistake. She left her wardrobe keys on the bathroom counter. Just sitting there, still warm from her pocket while the shower ran. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped them. I crossed the room. I opened her wardrobe, the one she kept padlocked, the one she said held family heirlooms, my bag, my clothes, my makeup, 3 other girls' belongings I recognized immediately, all of it shoved into the bottom shelf behind a pile of dirty laundry. My gut felt bang on target. It was Mancy who was stealing my stuff. All of it. I closed the wardrobe. I locked it. I put the keys back on the counter. And I called Melissa. "Don't tell anyone," I whispered. "Don't tell Gloria. Don't tell a single person. I have a plan." The plan was simple. Elegant even in the way that desperate ideas sometimes are when you've been backed into a corner so long you've memorized the texture of the wall. 2 cameras. 2 angles. 1 conversation she'd never see coming. Melissa and I spent 3 days preparing. We tested the phone placement on the bookshelf 6 times, angled behind a row of textbooks lens, peeking through the gap between times, AP Chemistry times, and times the Great Gatsby asterisk. The recording quality was grainy, but clear enough. You could see the whole room. You could hear everything. "And if she doesn't confess," Melissa asked sitting on my bed the night before chewing her thumbnail to the quick. "She will." I wasn't guessing. I'd lived with Mancy for 3 months. I knew her the way prey knows a predator, not by understanding, but by pattern. She couldn't resist gloating. It was the oxygen her cruelty ran on. If I confronted her with the evidence, she wouldn't deny it. She'd times celebrate, times it. Because in her mind, there was nothing I could do. She'd been right about that for a long time. The next afternoon, I waited until Mancy came back from her head girl meeting. She always returned, flushed and imperial, like a queen returning from court. I'd already started recording on the bookshelf. My phone sat silent between the spines, its red dot blinking like a tiny heartbeat. Melissa was in the hallway. Her phone was unlocked, Instagram open, finger hovering over the live button. We'd agreed on the signal. I'd text a single period when it was time. Mancy walked in, dropped her blazer on my bed, always mine, never hers, and kicked off her shoes. I opened her wardrobe. I'd used the keys again that morning. Taken my bag out. Laid my stolen clothes across her bed. Arranged the makeup. She'd taken my MAC lipstick, my setting spray, the foundation that wasn't even her shade, in a neat row on her pillow. She stared at the display. Then she looked at me. What is this? My stuff. My voice came out steadier than my hands, which were trembling behind my back. From your wardrobe. The one with the family heirlooms. Something shifted behind her eyes. Not fear. Calculation. She was running the math. Who had I told? What could she deny how quickly she could get to Gloria's office with tears on her face? I sent the period. You went through my things, she said, and there it was, the wobble in her voice, the rehearsed quiver. That's a violation of... You stole from me, Mancy. I didn't steal times, anything, asterisk. My bag. My clothes. My grandmother's bracelet. 3 other girls' stuff. Crammed in behind your dirty laundry. The calculation broke. I watched it happen, the mask slipping sideways like a painting knocked off its hook. And underneath was something I'd always known was there, but had never seen so nakedly contempt. Pure, undiluted contempt. She laughed. Yeah, I have all these clothes and makeup of you poor chicks. She stepped toward me and her voice dropped to that register she used when she wanted you to feel small, not loud, but dense like a fist wrapped in silk. What are you going to do about me? Tell Gloria. Tell Whitfield. She picked up my leather crossbody, the one I'd saved 8 months for, and dangled it from one finger. Go ahead. I'll cry. I'll show them the bruise I put on my own arm tonight. And by tomorrow times, you'll times be the one sitting in the office explaining yourself. She threw the bag at my face. It hit my cheekbone. Hard. The metal clasp split the skin just below my eye, and I felt the warm slip of blood before I felt the pain. That's what I think of your time, stuff time, she spat. Then she saw the doorway. Melissa stood there, phone raised, the Instagram Live icon pulsing in the corner of the screen. The viewer count was already climbing, 4070130. Girls from our hostel. Girls from other houses. People who'd been losing things for months and never had a name to attach to the absence. Mancy's face went white. Turn that off. Turn that times. Off times. Right now. She lunged for Melissa. Not a shove, a full body charge, hands reaching for the phone. Melissa sidestepped, kept the camera steady with the calm of someone who'd rehearsed this exact moment, and Mancy crashed into the doorframe. The viewer count hit 300. By the time Gloria arrived, breathless, summoned by 6 different girls banging on her door simultaneously, Mancy was on her bed, sobbing, performing the greatest hits. The tears. The trembling hands. The whispered, "They set me up." But Gloria had already seen the bookshelf recording. A girl down the hall had screen recorded the live. And when Gloria opened Mancy's wardrobe herself, she found stolen belongings from times 11 different students. Asterisk. 11. The tears stopped working. For the first time in 3 months, Mancy cried, and no one moved to comfort her. Both sets of parents were in Mr. Whitfield's office by Thursday morning. My father sat with his jaw set in concrete, speaking in the measured tone he uses when he's one sentence away from shouting. If this isn't resolved today, I'm filing a police report by 5 o'clock. Mancy's parents said nothing. Her mother sat with her hands folded, staring at the desk. Her father studied the window like it contained instructions he couldn't read. Their silence wasn't shock, it was recognition. They'd seen this before. Mancy confirmed it for them. When Mr. Whitfield asked her to explain herself, she turned to her mother and screamed, not the performative wail she used at school, but something raw and corroded, a sound that had been sharpened on years of practice. This is times your time's fault. You sent me to this place. You. Her mother flinched. Didn't speak. And in that flinch, I saw every teacher, every warden, every girl in the hostel who'd absorbed Mancy's cruelty and called it weather. She was suspended. Effective immediately. Her bags were packed by campus staff, while she sat in the front office, and she didn't look at me once as she was walked to her parents' car. I thought it would feel like victory. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath underwater for 3 months necessary, but my lungs still burned. Because here's what happened next. Mr. Whitfield called Melissa and me back into his office. He thanked us for bringing the matter to light. Then he informed us that we were being held equally responsible for reputational damage to the institution due to the Instagram broadcast. A formal note in both our files. A warning about appropriate channels. Asterisk. Appropriate channels. Asterisk. The same channels that had made Mancy head girl. The same channels that told me to keep my EpiPen handy and be more times flexible. Asterisk. I moved to a new room that weekend. Melissa helped me carry my things. Jack dropped out of the dance program entirely, didn't explain, didn't make eye contact in the hallway, just quietly evaporated from every space Mancy had inserted him into. I didn't blame him. He'd been a prop in someone else's cruelty, and props don't owe you a performance when the show closes. Mancy's head girl badge still sits in Gloria's desk drawer. Not revoked, not reassigned, just suspended. Like the institution can't bring itself to admit the mistake, so it holds the evidence in limbo and hopes everyone forgets. I don't forget. Some nights I still check that my wardrobe is locked. I still sleep with my journal under my body, not my pillow. And sometimes when the hallway gets too quiet, I catch myself listening for the sound of someone rearranging my things while I'm not looking. She's coming back next semester. No one has told me otherwise. The bomb is still ticking. I just don't share a room with it anymore.
Story 6.
The first week was fine. Sort of. Having my daughter Madison back home felt right. She's only 20 and holding her baby girl, my granddaughter Lily, just felt like the proper order of things. A house is supposed to have a baby in it sometimes. But our house had forgotten the language of newborns. It only spoke Ryan. Ryan is 11. He operates at 2 speeds, asleep and tornado. He's got ADHD that his doctor calls profound. I just call it Ryan. It's the way his brain is wired. He's not a bad kid. He's a good kid in a body that won't stop moving, with a mouth that won't stop talking, and a mind that ricochets from one thought to the next like a bullet in a tin can. The first incident was predictable. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Madison shuffled in her face pale and her eyes looking like 2 burnt holes in a blanket. Dad. Her voice was a rasp. You have to talk to him. Talk to who? What's wrong? Ryan, she said, her voice cracking. He just barreled into my room screaming about some new skin he got on Fortnite. Lily was finally asleep. Asterisk. Finally asterisk. I sighed. I could already picture it. Ryan vibrating with an excitement he physically couldn't contain, forgetting everything else in the universe, except that one glorious singular thought he needed to share. Time's right now. Asterisk. Okay, Maddie. I'll talk to him. She just stared at me, her arms crossed tight over a milk-stained t-shirt. A talk isn't going to do anything. He needs a consequence. I'll handle it. I found Ryan in his room, headphones on, body contorting as he dodged imaginary laser fire. I tapped his shoulder. He ripped the headphones off. Dad, you should have seen it. I got the last guy with a no-scope from the top of the tower. It was insane. That's great, buddy. Hey, listen. You gotta remember to be quiet. Your niece is sleeping and you woke her up. His face fell for a second. Genuine remorse flickered in his eyes. Oh, forgot. Sorry. It's okay. Just try to remember, all right? Knock first. Quietly. Okay, Dad. I will. He put his headphones back on, and the world outside of his screen immediately ceased to exist again. I went back downstairs. Madison was waiting, leaning against the counter, her expression unchanged. I talked to him. I said, pouring my coffee? And he said he's sorry. He forgot. Madison let out a laugh that was sharp and humorless. He forgot. Of course he forgot. He's always going to forget, Dad. That's the problem. Madison, what do you want from me? I said, my own patience starting to fray. He has ADHD. His brain doesn't work like yours. He can't help how he behaves. It's not malicious. You of all people should know that. I'm not saying it's malicious, she shot back, her voice rising. I'm saying it's disruptive. I'm saying I haven't slept more than 90 minutes at a stretch in 2 weeks, and every time I get her down, he blows it up. I need your help. I need you to be a parent. The jab landed. I am being a parent. To both of my kids. That includes the one who needs a little more understanding. He's your brother. Cut him some slack. She just shook her head, a tear of pure exhaustion rolling down her cheek. Just try to keep him away from my door. Please. I tried. God, I tried. But telling Ryan to be quiet is like telling the ocean not to have waves. For the next week, it was a constant battle. Ryan, indoor voice. Ryan, stop running in the hall. Ryan, for the love of God, don't slam the door. Each time he'd give me that same look of brief, sincere regret. Sorry, Dad. And 5 minutes later, he'd be bouncing off the walls again, the promise vaporized by the next impulse. Madison started putting a chair under her doorknob. It didn't work. Ryan, thinking the door was just stuck, would jiggle and yank it until the chair scraped across the floor with a screech that was worse than him just opening it. Or he'd just bang on the wood. Maddie, you in there? The internet's down. The noise always woke the baby. The house grew thick with the tension you could taste. Madison stopped talking to me, communicating only in sharp, single-word answers. She looked haunted. Lily was always fussy, now overtired and miserable. Her cries were a constant grating soundtrack in the background of our lives. I felt Madison's anger radiating through the floorboards. And it made me angry too. I was doing my best. I was juggling a sleep-deprived daughter with a newborn and a special needs son. Why couldn't she see I was on her side, on both her sides? She was making it seem like I had to choose. This afternoon, a miracle happened. Silence. Lily had been screaming for 3 solid hours. A painful, colicky shriek that felt like it was drilling into my skull. I watched Madison pace the living room with her bouncing, shushing her face, a mask of desperation. Finally, around 4 o'clock, the crying stopped. Madison stood frozen in the middle of the room for a full minute listening. Then she crept up the stairs with the stealth of a bomb squad technician. I sank into the recliner, the sudden quiet roaring in my ears. I turned on the TV, keeping the volume on a whisper. Ryan was in his room, hopefully engrossed in his game. For the first time all day, I felt my shoulders unclench. Maybe we'd turned a corner. Maybe things would be okay. I closed my eyes just for a second, soaking in the peace. That's when I heard it. A loud, triumphant shout from upstairs. Yes, level up! It was Ryan. His voice, unfiltered and explosive, echoed through the quiet house. It was followed a half-second later by a sound that made every nerve in my body stand on end. The frantic, piercing wail of a startled baby. But there was another sound, too. A sound I'd never heard from my daughter before. It wasn't a cry or a complaint. It was a roar. A gut-wrenching scream of pure, spent fury that was more animal than human. Ryan. The sound of her bedroom door slamming open cracked like a gunshot, so hard I felt the vibration through the floor. The baby's cries pitched higher, mingling with Madison's enraged, incoherent shouting. I heard a thud, then a sharp hurt yelp from my son. My blood ran cold. I dropped the remote and launched myself out of the chair, my heart pounding against my ribs as I took the stairs 2 at a time. I got to the top of the stairs just as Madison lunged, not at Ryan, but at her own bedroom door, slamming it shut. Ryan was on the floor in the hallway, curled up and sobbing. The baby's screams were now muffled, a desperate, frantic sound from behind the closed door. "What the hell did you do?" I bellowed at the door. I knelt beside Ryan, putting my hands on his shaking shoulders. "Buddy, are you okay? Did she push you?" He looked up at me, his face red and streaked with tears. I just wanted to tell her about the V-Bucks I earned. I forgot to knock." The door flew open again. Madison stood there, a wild look in her eyes. She wasn't holding Lily. "He didn't forget to knock, Dad. He forgot he was a person." He kicked the door open because the chair was under the knob and screamed in his loudest voice 2 feet from her bassinet. "On purpose." "It wasn't on purpose," Ryan wailed. "It was an accident." I stood up, putting myself between Madison and my son. I pointed a finger at her. "I don't care what he did. Look at him. There's no excuse for making your brother cry like that. None." Her mouth fell open. It was a look of pure, unadulterated disbelief. "No excuse. Are you listening to yourself? He's a little terror he needs to learn, but you won't ever teach him because it's easier to just let him run wild and call it ADHD. "Don't you dare," I said, my voice dangerously low. "Don't you dare use his condition against him. You have no idea what it's like for him, the battles he fights in his own head every single second. And you have no idea what it's like for me," she screamed, tears finally breaking free and carving paths through her makeup. "I'm drowning, Dad, and instead of throwing me a life raft, you're holding my head underwater to make sure your precious son doesn't get his feet wet." That's when I snapped. The exhaustion, the constant noise, her ingratitude, it all boiled over. "My precious son? You mean the one who was here long before you decided to show up on my doorstep with a baby and nowhere else to go? You knew what this house was like. You knew who Ryan was. If you couldn't handle your brother, maybe you should have thought of that 9 months ago?" The words hung in the air, ugly and heavy. The wildness in her eyes died, replaced by something colder, sharper. Something I'd never seen before. "So this is a punishment," she said, her voice flat. "For needing my father." "This isn't a punishment, this is reality. This is my house. Ryan lives here, and I will not have him treated like a villain because his brain is wired differently." "If you can't deal with that," I said, the final fatal words tumbling out before I could stop them, "then you can get out." For a long moment, she just stared at me. The baby's cries from inside the room were the only sound. Madison didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just nodded, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. Then she turned, walked back into her room, and closed the door behind her with a soft, final click. I stood in the hallway, my heart hammering. I got Ryan up and took him to his room, told him it wasn't his fault that Maddie was just tired. He sniffled and booted up his game, the crisis already fading from his mind. I went downstairs, my hands still shaking with adrenaline. I felt a surge of righteousness. I had defended my son. The one who couldn't defend himself. Madison was an adult. She'd get over it. She'd realize she was wrong to scream at a kid, her own brother. She'd come down and apologize. I poured a glass of whiskey, sank into my recliner, and waited for the apology that was surely coming. An hour passed. The only sound was the clicking of Ryan's keyboard upstairs. The baby had finally, blessedly gone quiet. Then I heard it. Not shouting, not crying. A different sound. The methodical scrape of a drawer opening. A soft thud. Another drawer. It was the sound of packing. I sat up straight, the whiskey souring in my stomach. She was bluffing, just trying to make me feel guilty. It was petty. It was manipulative. I wasn't going to fall for it. But the sounds continued. The distinct zip of a duffel bag. The muffled click of hangers being pulled from a closet rod. I went to the bottom of the stairs. Madison, I called up. No answer. Maddie, don't be dramatic. Silence. My righteousness began to curdle into a sick, creeping dread. I walked up the stairs and stood in her open doorway. Suitcases I hadn't seen in years were open on her bed. She was folding tiny onesies and sleepers into neat stacks, her movements calm and deliberate. She didn't look at me. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice weaker than I intended. She picked up a stack of diapers and placed them in a bag. "Madison, stop this. You're overreacting. We can talk about this." She zipped a bag shut and slung it over her shoulder. Then she picked up another. She moved past me out of the room, as if I were a piece of furniture. I followed her downstairs, my feet feeling like lead. She set the bags by the front door. "Where are you going to go?" I demanded. "It's almost dark." "Don't be stupid." She ignored me, heading back upstairs. I heard her moving around then. She came back down holding Lily's car seat in one hand. The baby was asleep inside a tiny, perfect bundle, oblivious. My chest tightened. This wasn't a bluff. "Maddie, please," I said, my voice cracking. "Don't do this." She stopped at the front door and finally looked at me. The coldness in her eyes struck me like a physical blow. All the warmth, all the love, all the history between us, it was gone. Erased. In its place was the cool, polite disinterest you give a stranger who'd held the door for you. "You were right," she said, her voice completely devoid of emotion. "I shouldn't have come here. It was a mistake to think this was a place for her. Or for me." She turned the doorknob. "You made your choice, Dad," she said, not looking back. "You chose who needed you more. Now live with it." Then she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her, and a moment later I heard the engine of her beat-up Civic turn over. I watched through the window as her taillights disappeared down the street. The house was silent. Utterly, completely silent. Ryan appeared at the top of the stairs, a shadow in the dim hallway light. "Is Maddie gone?" he asked, his voice small. "Is she still mad at me?" I stared at the empty space by the door, where my granddaughter's car seat had been just moments before. I had won. I had protected my son. I had established the rules of my house. And in the crushing, deafening silence, I realized my victory felt exactly like losing everything.
Story 7.
Her name was Bessie. A 1,972 Ford F-100 seafoam green with a white roof, and more of my family's history in her steel than a photo album could ever hold. She wasn't just a truck. She was a time capsule. My grandpa bought her brand new off the lot, paid in cash he'd saved from working the docks. He taught my dad to drive stick under the gear shift, worn smooth by their hands. Then my dad taught me. Every Saturday from the time I was 10 until I left for college, my dad and I were in the garage with Bessie. We rebuilt the 302 engine bolt by bolt. I learned the smell of gasoline and grease, the satisfying click of a ratchet, the sting of brake fluid on a scraped knuckle. Her bench seat had absorbed my grandpa's cigar smoke, my dad's coffee spills, and more than a few of my teenage tears over some girl who didn't matter. When my dad handed me the keys on my 18th birthday, it wasn't just a truck. It was a baton, a legacy. The keys felt heavier than any car I've ever owned. When I moved in with Sarah, Bessie came too. She was the one non-negotiable. She got the garage, my Civic could sit in the driveway and brave the elements. Sarah thought it was cute at first, my obsession with the old farm truck. She'd even bring me a beer while I was polishing the chrome on a Sunday afternoon. Our arrangement was simple, or so I thought. I worked. A lot. As a foreman for a commercial construction crew, my days started before the sun was up and often ended long after it was down. The money was good, great, even. It paid the mortgage on our nice suburban house, paid for her online classes, paid for the 2 ridiculously fluffy cats she'd insisted we adopt. In return, she handled the domestic side of things. Groceries, cooking, cleaning. It was a deal we made. It worked until it didn't. The cats were the first crack. Their names were Sterling and Archer. They were her babies, but my responsibility apparently. The friction started slowly. A sigh when I came home and collapsed on the couch instead of immediately playing with them. A pointed comment about how the litter box was getting full. Last Tuesday it boiled over. I'd pulled a 14-hour shift wrestling with a concrete pour that went sideways. I got home smelling like sweat and misery, my boots caked in mud. All I wanted was a hot shower and a cold beer. I walked in the door and was hit with the ammonia stink of an overdue litter box. Julian, seriously, Sarah was standing in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, face tight. "Hey, honey, rough day," I mumbled, trying to sidestep her. She blocked my path. "I asked you to do the litter box this morning. I even left a note." I honestly didn't remember. The morning was a blur of coffee and rereading blueprints. "Shit, Sarah, I'm sorry." I was rushing. "I'll do it, just let me shower first." "No, you'll do it now." "It stinks. The whole house stinks. It's disgusting." Something inside me, worn thin from the long day, finally snapped. "Okay, fine. I'll do the damn litter. But my job pays for this house you're complaining about." "It pays for the cat food, the litter, the stupid feather toys they shred in 5 minutes. Forgive me if I'm a little preoccupied making sure we can afford it all." It was the wrong thing to say. I knew it the second the words left my mouth. Her face went from angry to ice cold. "You think that's all I do? Sit around waiting for you to bring home a paycheck?" She shot back, her voice dangerously low. "I run this entire house, Julian. While you're out playing with your tools, I'm doing everything else. I am not your maid." "I never said you were." "You might as well have. You don't care about anything but your job and that stupid rusty truck in the garage." That hit a nerve. "Don't you talk about my truck." "See, that's what you care about. That hunk of metal gets more attention than me or the cats. It's pathetic." The fight devolved from there. We dredged up every old argument, every perceived slight. It ended with me sleeping on the couch and her slamming the bedroom door so hard a picture frame fell off the hallway wall. The next 2 days were a frozen hell. Silent treatment. We moved around each other like ghosts, the air thick with resentment. I'd leave for work before she was up. She'd be asleep on the couch when I got home. I hated it. I was just trying to build up the nerve to apologize, to swallow my pride, and just make things right. I figured I'd pick up her favorite takeout on the way home Friday, maybe a bottle of wine. We'd talk it out. We always did. Friday was another grinder of a day. I was exhausted when I finally pulled my Civic into the driveway around 7. I killed the engine, my head throbbing already, rehearsing my apology. As I got out, a weird feeling washed over me. Something was wrong. The air felt empty. I looked at the garage. The door was wide open. And Bessie's spot was empty. My heart hammered against my ribs. My first thought was theft. I sprinted to the garage, my work boots echoing on the concrete. Nothing. Just a dark rectangular oil stain on the floor where she'd sat for the last 5 years. A place so familiar it was burned into my brain. Panic clawed at my throat. I ran into the house through the side door. "Sarah," I yelled, my voice cracking. "Sarah, call the police. The truck's gone. Someone stole the truck." I burst into the living room. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, one of the cats purring in her lap. She didn't look surprised. She didn't look scared. She just looked calm. She slowly looked up from her screen, her expression as blank as a brick wall. A cold, heavy dread pooled in my stomach, far worse than the fear of theft. "Sarah," I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Where's my truck?" She looked up from the cat, her eyes flat and empty. "I got rid of it." The words didn't compute. It was like she'd spoken a foreign language. "You what? What are you talking about?" "Did you park it on the street?" "No, Julian. I sold it." She said it so simply, like she was telling me we were out of milk. Some junkyard gave me $400 for it. $400. For a piece of my family's soul. The breath left my body in a rush, leaving a hollow, ringing void. My vision tunneled until the only thing I could see was her face, a mask of smug satisfaction. The argument over the litter box, my long hours, everything, it all faded into white noise. This wasn't a fight. This was an execution. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. My voice came out low and steady, a tone that scared even me. "Get your cat off your lap." She flinched. "What?" "Sterling," I said, pointing at the gray one. "He's mine. I paid the adoption fee. Get him off your lap, get your shit, and get out of my house." "Your house?" she scoffed, her composure cracking. "My name is on the... and my money pays the mortgage. You have 1 hour." I turned and walked to the bedroom, my movements stiff and robotic. I grabbed a duffel bag and started throwing clothes into it. My phone started buzzing in my pocket. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. A constant venomous stream. I finally pulled it out. It was a group text with Sarah, her sister, and her mother. Asterisk, Sarah's mom, "I cannot believe you would throw my daughter out after everything she's done for you." Asterisk. Asterisk. "Sarah's sister, you're a monster, Julian. She sold a piece of junk and you're destroying your lives over it." Asterisk. Then came texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Her friends, probably. Asterisk, abuser. Man-child. You deserved it. Asterisk. They were painting me as the villain for reacting to her catastrophic act of betrayal. They didn't get it. They never would. I blocked every number. I walked back into the living room. Sarah was standing there crying now. The performative, self-pitying tears of someone who'd just realized their bomb had a bigger blast radius than they'd intended. I ignored her, scooped up a bewildered Sterling, and grabbed his carrier from the utility closet. "Julian, please," she sobbed. "It was just a truck." That was the last thing she ever said to me. I walked out the front door, put Sterling in my Civic, and drove away without looking back. The first call I made was to my buddy Dave, a mechanic who knew Bessie almost as well as I did. My voice was shaking as I told him what happened. He was silent for a moment, then just said, "Where are you?" I was crashing on his couch within the hour. The second call was to the police. I filed a report for a stolen vehicle. The officer on the phone was sympathetic but procedural. "So your live-in girlfriend sold the vehicle. Is the title in her name?" "No," I said, my jaw tight. "It's in my name. Solely. My father signed it over to me 10 years ago. And you have the title?" "Yes. It's in a safe deposit box." There was a pause. "Okay, sir. That changes things. That's Grand Theft Auto." The next morning, Dave and I started calling every scrapyard and junkyard within a 100-mile radius. Most gave us the brush off. A couple took my number, but I knew they wouldn't call. The desperation was eating me alive. I pictured Bessie being crushed into a cube of seafoam green metal, my grandpa's legacy flattened and forgotten. The harassment didn't stop. She created new social media profiles to message me. Her family left voicemails alternating between threats and tearful pleas for me to be the bigger man and forgive her. They saw a broken relationship. I saw a felony. It was Dave who found her. On the third day of searching, he called me, his voice electric. I got her, buddy. Miller's Auto Salvage off Route 9. Old man Miller is a hard ass, but I described the truck and he said a pretty girl sold it to him on Friday. Matched Sarah's description. I was in my car in 30 seconds, the police report on the passenger seat. When I got to Miller's, the place was a graveyard of rusting metal. And there, tucked behind a stack of wrecked sedans, was Bessie. Relief washed over me so intensely my knees went weak. But as I got closer, the relief curdled into rage. There was a deep, vicious scratch gouged into the passenger side door, running from the fender to the cab. It was fresh already, showing the faint orange tinge of rust. It was deliberate. The owner, a grizzled man with oil permanently etched into his wrinkles, came out of his shack, wiping his hands on a rag. "Can I help you?" "That's my truck," I said, pointing. It was stolen. He grunted, unimpressed. "Got a title, says otherwise." "Paid $400 cash for it." "Sale is final." "The title is a forgery," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'm calling the officer who took my report. His name is Detective Mills. You can either show him the paperwork you have, or he can come down here with a warrant." Miller's eyes narrowed, but he saw I wasn't bluffing. He disappeared into his shack and came back with a greasy piece of paper. The bill of sale. And there it was at the bottom, my name clumsily forged in Sarah's loopy handwriting. The signature looked nothing like mine. Detective Mills arrived 20 minutes later. He took one look at the forged signature on the bill of sale, another at the legitimate title I'd retrieved from the bank, and nodded. "The vehicle is yours, Mr. Hayes. We'll have it towed wherever you'd like." He then looked at Miller. "And you're going to be a witness. We'll be paying a visit to a Miss Sarah Jenkins shortly." Getting Bessie back wasn't a celebration. It was a damage assessment. Dave towed her to his shop. The scratch was bad enough, a deep wound that would require sanding the whole panel down to bare metal and a perfect paint match. But then he called me from under the lift. "Julian, you need to see this." I went to the shop. He pointed up at the undercarriage. One of the brake lines, the one leading to the front passenger side wheel, was cut. Not worn through, not rusted, but clearly and cleanly snipped. A tiny bit of brake fluid was still weeping from the clean edge. If I had somehow gotten the truck back and driven it without checking, my first hard stop would have sent me careening into traffic. She hadn't just sold my truck. She had tried to get me killed. The cops found Sarah at her parents' house. When they presented her with the evidence, the forgery, the testimony from the junkyard owner, she confessed everything. The scratch, the brake line, everything. She was arrested on the spot. The charge was grand theft auto, a Class 1 felony because of the vehicle's value and the malicious damage. The court was swift. She pleaded guilty to avoid a trial, was fined $5,000, and given 3 years of probation. I have Bessie back in my garage now. She's scarred, and the estimates for the bodywork and mechanical repairs are astronomical. Every time I look at that raw metal gash, I feel a fresh stab of cold fury. But she's home. She's safe. I'm exhausted. I'm broke from the initial legal fees and the impending repair bills. But every night I go into the garage, run my hand over her dented fender, and I feel vindicated. The criminal case is over, but I'm not done. My lawyer filed the civil suit yesterday. I'm going to get back every single cent it takes to make her whole again. She didn't just sell a truck. She declared war on my family's history. And it's a war she is going to lose.
Story 8.
The digital fireplace on the TV crackled, casting a warm, fake glow across Amelia's face. She was curled up next to me on the couch, her head on my shoulder, scrolling through real estate listings on her tablet. This was our nightly ritual. House porn. A masochistic little habit for two people trying to scrape together a down payment in this economy. Ooh, look at this one, Jack, she murmured, tapping a picture of a tidy-looking colonial with a wraparound porch. 3 beds, 2.5 baths. Look at that yard. We could get a dog. We could, I said, trying to match her enthusiasm. I pointed at the price. We could also sell a couple of kidneys. She swatted my arm playfully. Be serious, the listing says, motivated seller. We're getting so close. Another year of being super strict. And we'll have the 20%. She said we, and I believed it. Every extra shift I picked up, every time we cooked at home instead of ordering takeout, every dollar that went into the high-yield savings account we'd nicknamed the escape pod, it was all for this. For the porch and the yard and the hypothetical dog. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. I glanced at the screen. It was my brother David. Rent time. That's all it said. It's all it ever said on the first of the month. My little sister Chloe was in her second year of a brutal grad school program 3 states away. The stipend barely covered her food. So David and I had a deal. We'd split her rent until she graduated. No discussion, no fuss. It's just what you do. Who's that? Amelia asked, not looking up from a photo of a walk-in closet. Just David, I said, picking up the phone. Time to send him Chloe's rent money. The scrolling stopped. The silence in the room suddenly felt heavy, broken only by the fake crackling fire. I could feel her stiffen beside me. Right. Then she said, her voice a little tight. She put the tablet down. How much is it again? $400 from me, $400 from him. Covers her place. She did the math in her head. I could practically see the gears turning, converting the $400 from helping my sister into things we could have bought for the house. $400, she repeated slowly. Jack, we just talked about being super strict. She used air quotes, mimicking her own words from 60 seconds earlier. That's a big chunk out of the savings budget this month. I shrugged. It's not from the savings budget, it's from my budget. It's a fixed expense, like my car payment. We've always known about it. I know, but it just feels different now that we're so close to the goal, she said, turning to face me fully. Her expression had shifted from dreamy house hunter to concerned financial advisor. Every single dollar counts right now. Your family is great, I love them, but Chloe's a grown woman. Is she working? She's a full-time grad student and a TA, Amelia. She works 60 hours a week for a stipend that's basically minimum wage. This is temporary. It's been a year and a half of temporary, she shot back. That's what, over $7,000 you've just given away money that could be in our down payment fund earning interest. I felt a flash of irritation. It's not giving it away. It's helping my sister. My brother and I decided to do it. It's a family thing. But I'm your family now too, she said, her voice softening, reaching for my hand. It was a classic Amelia move. The velvet glove. Our future family. Doesn't that take priority? This was new. She'd made comments before, little passive-aggressive digs about how it must be nice to have brothers who just hand you money, but she'd never outright challenged it. Not like this. It's not an either-or situation, I said, pulling my hand away to grab my wallet. I didn't like where this was going. Wait, she said, her voice firm. Don't send it. Not yet. I stopped my hand on my banking app. Why? Let's just talk about it more tonight. A real discussion. We can make a budget, look at the numbers, and see if there isn't another way. Maybe she could get a student loan or something. She's trying to get through school without a mountain of debt. That's the whole point of us helping. Just. Promise me you won't send it until we talk, she insisted, her eyes pleading. Tonight. After dinner. Please, Jack. For me. For us. I didn't want the fight. Not then. Fine, I sighed. We'll talk tonight. She smiled, relieved, and leaned in to kiss me. Thank you. She picked the tablet back up, and just like that, we were back to looking at granite countertops. But the mood was broken. The fake fire on the TV suddenly seemed colder. The next day at work was hell. Every email, every phone call felt like an interruption to the argument replaying in my head. Asterisk, our future family. Doesn't that take priority times? The words echoed, twisting something in my gut. Was I being selfish, or was she... Lunchtime came. I sat at my desk eating a sad turkey sandwich and staring at my phone. I thought about Chloe buried in textbooks, probably living on ramen and stress. I thought about the promise I'd made to David, the simple, unspoken pact between brothers to have our sisters back. Then I thought about Amelia's calculated plea. Asterisk. For us, asterisk. It wasn't about us. It was about control. It was about her deciding where my money I earned should go. And my sister was on the wrong side of her ledger. My thumb hovered over my banking app. I heard Amelia's voice in my head. Asterisk. Promise me you won't send it. Asterisk. I opened the app. I found David's contact. I typed in the amount, $400. In the memo line, I wrote, For Chloe. Tell her I say hi. I hit send. The little green check mark that appeared on the screen felt like a deep, clean breath of air. I let a couple of hours pass. Let the transaction settle. I didn't want to hide it, but I didn't want the immediate lunchtime explosion either. Around 3 o'clock, I picked up my phone and sent her a text. I kept it simple, direct. No apology, no excuse. Hey, just sent David the money for Chloe's rent. I put the phone face down on my desk and tried to focus on a spreadsheet. It was pointless. I was just waiting for the detonation. It took less than a minute. My phone didn't ring. It vibrated violently against the wood, a series of short, furious bursts. I flipped it over. A string of texts from Amelia. Are you fucking kidding me? After we talked, you went right behind my back and did it anyway. You have absolutely no respect for me. Another message was coming through. The little bubble with the 3 dots danced on the screen for a long, agonizing moment. Don't bother coming home until you figure out how you're going to fix this. I didn't fix it. I didn't call. I packed a bag with a few days' worth of clothes and went to David's. For 3 days, my phone was a silent, dead weight in my pocket. No calls. No texts. Nothing. It was a silence so absolute, it felt like an answer in itself. On the 4th day, her name finally lit up my screen. A text. Can we talk not on the phone? Meet me at the Daily Grind in an hour. No, hi, no, how are you? Just a summons. I found her at a small table in the back corner of the coffee shop, stirring a latte with methodical, angry little circles. She looked tired, but she'd made sure to put on the full face of makeup, the one that said, I am winning this breakup. You didn't call, she said, not looking up from her cup. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. You told me not to until I stopped thinking like an idiot, I replied, sitting down. I haven't. Her head snapped up, eyes flashing. So you're just throwing this away? 2 years, our house, over $400. It was never about the money, Amelia. It was about you giving me an ultimatum. She softened her expression, the calculated shift from anger to wounded doe. I was hurt, Jack. You made a decision about times, our times, money times, our times, future without me. I thought we were a team. She reached across the table, trying to take my hand. I moved it to pick up my own coffee. She recoiled slightly, then pressed on. Look, I've had some time to think. And I realize this is bigger than just your sister's rent. It's about our priorities. If we're going to get that house, if we're going to build a life, we need to be aggressive. We need to tackle our debts together as a team. All of them. There was a strange emphasis on the last part. What debts? I asked. My car is paid off. You said you were handling your credit cards. She took a deep breath like she was about to make a grand romantic gesture. My student loans, Jack. They're nearly 6 figures. The monthly payment is significant. It's been holding me back. Holding times, us times back. I was thinking, if you stop the payments to Chloe and maybe we pull back on the house savings for just a year or 2, you could start helping me pay them down. Aggressively. We could knock them out together. The room seemed to shrink. The background noise of the cafe, the hiss of the espresso machine, it all faded into a dull roar. It was so transparent, so perfectly plotted, that I almost had to laugh. The fight about Chloe, the ultimatum, this sad little coffee summit, it was all a negotiation tactic. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice dangerously calm. You want me to stop helping my sister who is struggling to get through grad school so I can pay off the loans for your business degree? It's not just times my times degree, it's times our times future, she insisted, her voice rising. A stronger financial foundation for us. No, I said. The word was flat. Final. I'm not going to stop helping my family. Not for you, not for anyone. Family, she scoffed, dropping the mask entirely. Her face twisted into a sneer of pure contempt. Your family's a bunch of leeches, Jack. Your parents have been bleeding you dry for years with their little emergencies. And your sister is just the latest excuse. They've raised you to be their personal ATM and you're too stupid to even see it. I just stared at her. There was nothing left to say. No argument to win. She'd shown me exactly who she was. I stood up, pulling my keys from my pocket and setting the car key on the table. Get your things from the apartment. Leave my key on the counter. Her face went from rage to panic and back again in a split second. You're breaking up with me after everything I've done for you. No, I said, looking her dead in the eye. You broke up with us when you decided my family's well-being was an obstacle to you getting what you want. I turned to leave. Fine, she shrieked, her voice cracking. People were starting to stare. She grabbed her purse, fumbled inside, and pulled out her own set of keys. Here's your stupid key. She threw them. They clattered hard against my chest and fell to the floor. I didn't even flinch. I just looked down at them, then back at her, and walked out without another word. David helped me move her stuff out. Her friend, a woman who always looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe, directed the operation with silent, pursed lip efficiency. They packed the designer clothes, the expensive skincare, the tablet we used to look at houses on. In under an hour, every trace of her was gone. The apartment felt huge and empty. That night, David brought over a pizza and a 6-pack. We sat on the floor of my living room, the TV off for once. You okay, man? He asked. Yeah. I think so, I said, staring at the blank space on the wall where a piece of art she'd picked out used to hang. It's weird. I should be devastated. But mostly I just feel stupid. You're not stupid. You were in love. Was I? I took a long pull from my beer. I don't think so. Not really. I was infatuated with the idea of her. The idea of us. The house, the dog, the whole thing. I looked at him. You know, she leased a BMW A5 series. We're pinching pennies on takeout, and she's driving a car with a monthly payment bigger than Chloe's rent. How did I not see that? You see what you want to see, David said, shrugging. Remember when she tried to convince you that our annual camping trip with Dad was a waste of a vacation day? The memories started flooding back, a highlight reel of red flags I'd painted green. The way she'd complain about me grabbing a beer with my friends after work. The subtle digs about my parents needing help with a car repair. It wasn't about building a future with me. It was about isolating me. It was about making me the sole proprietor of her lifestyle. The student loans. I said the final piece clicking into place. She wasn't looking for a partner. She was looking for a co-signer. A financial safety net. Well, David said, raising his bottle, her net has a big fucking hole in it now. I clinked my bottle against his. The apartment was still empty. But for the first time in a long time, it felt clean. It felt like mine.
Story 9.
When I married Clara, I knew her sister Chloe was part of the deal. It was a package deal, a 2-for-1, and I was okay with that. Genuinely. Clara had practically raised Chloe after their mom passed away, stepping into a maternal role when she was barely out of her teens herself. It was one of the things I loved about her, that fierce, unwavering loyalty. Chloe is 20 now. She has a neurological condition that affects her coordination and sometimes makes social situations awkward. It's not severe, but it's there. A constant background hum to her life. In the beginning, I saw her through Clara's eyes, a sweet, slightly fragile girl who just needed a little extra help navigating the world. So when we'd go out for dinner and Chloe would join, I'd pick up the tab without a second thought. When her laptop died, we replaced it. It was just what you did for family. The shift was gradual. It started around the time Chloe turned 19 and decided college wasn't for her. I'm going to be a freelance graphic designer, she announced one night over a pizza I was paying for. I've got clients lining up already. Clara beamed her face, glowing with pride. That's amazing, Chloe. We're so proud of you. I was supportive too. It sounded like a great plan. But the clients were always just about to pay. The big projects were always just around the corner. A year went by. Chloe still lived at home with her dad, but she was at our apartment constantly. She ate our food, used our Wi-Fi, and talked a big game about her booming career, yet I never saw a single dollar from it. The first real crack appeared on my birthday. We went out to a steakhouse, my choice. Chloe ordered the lobster tail add-on without blinking. When the bill came, she was deep in her phone scrolling through Instagram. Clara just slid the check over to my side of the table. So, what'd you get me? I asked Chloe, trying to keep it light. She looked up, a little startled, as if the thought had just occurred to her. Oh shoot. It's coming tomorrow. Amazon delivery is so slow right now. It never came. Clara bought me a watch from both of them 2 days later. Chloe chipped in, she said, but her eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. I knew she was covering for her. I let it go. But it kept happening. She'd ask to borrow $20 for gas and never pay it back. She'd come over for movie night and ask what we were ordering for dinner, as if her inclusion in our payment were a given. She even started forwarding us her medical bills, specialist copays, prescription costs. My insurance is crap, she'd text Clara, and Clara would immediately Zelle her the money from our joint account. Babe, I said one night, scrolling through our bank statement. We spent almost $400 on Chloe last month, not including the dinners. Clara got defensive instantly. She needs it, Mateo. Her condition isn't cheap to manage, and she's just getting her business off the ground. Is she, though? I asked, a little sharper than I intended. Because I haven't seen any evidence of it. Does she ever show you any of her work or any invoices? She doesn't have to prove anything to you, Clara snapped. She's my sister. We take care of her. That was the end of the conversation. We take care of her became Clara's trump card, the conversation killer she'd pull out whenever I got close to questioning the one-way flow of cash out of our account and into Chloe's life. I resented it, but I loved my wife, and I knew how deep her bond with her sister ran. So I bit my tongue and worked a little more overtime. Then, Clara got pregnant. Everything changed. The world snapped into a terrifyingly sharp focus. It wasn't about us anymore. It was about our daughter. Our future. My future, specifically as the sole provider, while Clara was on unpaid maternity leave. I started seeing every dollar with new eyes. A $30 dinner for Chloe wasn't just a dinner. It was a box of diapers. The $150 for her urgent car repair wasn't a repair. It was a week's worth of formula. The money we were pouring into her black hole of a life was money being siphoned directly from my daughters. The day our baby Sophia was born was the best day of my life. Holding her, this tiny, perfect person who depended on me for everything, I felt a switch flip in my soul. A primal protective instinct I never knew I had roared to life. My family was now me, Clara, and this little girl. Everyone else was outside the circle. Chloe came to the hospital, of course. She held Sophia for a minute, took a bunch of selfies, and then started telling Clara about a concert she wanted to go to next month. The tickets are like $200, she sighed. It's insane. I don't know how I'm going to swing it. She looked right at Clara. A pointed, expectant look. I saw Clara, exhausted and hormonal but still in default big sister mode, open her mouth to say, "Don't worry, we'll figure it out." "No," I said, stepping between them. My voice was quiet but hard. "You can't afford it, so you can't go." The silence in the room was deafening. Chloe looked at me like I'd just slapped her. Clara's eyes flashed with anger. It was the first time I'd ever drawn a hard line, and nobody liked it. That feeling, that simmering rage, just grew. We were 2 weeks in. I was barely sleeping, working from home with a crying baby in the next room and stressing about the mortgage. We were living paycheck to paycheck for the first time in our lives. Every grocery run was a tightrope walk. In my mind, Chloe transformed. She was no longer the sweet girl with a disability. She was a leech. A 20-year-old freeloader who'd been coddled into a state of permanent helplessness by the one person I needed on my team. Last night, Clara was trying to soothe a screaming Sophia, rocking her back and forth, her face a mask of exhaustion. Her phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from Chloe. I was right there. I couldn't help but see it. It was a link to a brand new top-of-the-line MacBook Pro. The $1,000 one. Underneath the message read times. My laptop is being so slow I can't get any work done. Can we get this? I need it for that big Australian client project. Asterisk. I watched Clara's face. I saw the conflict, the exhaustion, and then the familiar heartbreaking resignation. She typed back times. Let me talk to Mateo. We'll figure something out. Asterisk. That was it. That was the moment something in me broke. The calm, rational part of my brain just shut off, replaced by white-hot fury. She was going to do it. Even now, with our daughter in her arms and our finances in shambles, she was going to find a way to give her sister another $1,000 handout. I watched her put the phone down and turn her attention back to Sophia, humming a soft lullaby. My heart was pounding a war drum against my ribs. I stood there for a long moment, the screen of her phone glowing on the dark granite countertop. Then I took a deep breath. Clara, I said, my voice dangerously calm. Put the baby in her crib. We need to talk, now. Clara's shoulders tensed. She clutched Sophia a little tighter, her back still to me. She's almost asleep, Mateo. Can't this wait? No, I said, my voice, leaving no room for argument. It can't. Put her down. She shot me a look over her shoulder, a mixture of defiance and exhaustion. For a second, I thought she was going to refuse. But then she saw my face. She must have seen that the calm, reasonable husband she knew was gone, replaced by a stranger standing in our kitchen. Wordlessly, she walked into the nursery. I heard the soft click of the door. When she returned, her arms were crossed over her chest. What? What? Was so important it couldn't wait. I picked up her phone from the counter and held it up. The message from Chloe was still glowing on the screen. This. $1,000 laptop for her big Australian client. Are you kidding me? Her jaw tightened. She needs it for work, Mateo. Her current one is old. What work, Clara? The question exploded out of me louder than I intended. The imaginary work. The freelance career that hasn't produced a single paycheck in over a year. When are you going to wake up? You're not helping her. You're crippling her. And she's pulling us down with her. That is not fair, she cried, her voice cracking. She has a disability. Things are harder for her. I thought you understood that. I do understand it, I shot back, stepping closer. What I don't understand is why her disability means she's entitled to my paycheck. To Sophia's future. We are barely making it, Clara. I'm looking at our budget every single night trying to figure out how to stretch it another week. And you're ready to drop $1,000 on a brand new toy for your sister so she can continue to pretend to be a graphic designer. It's not a toy, it's an investment in her future. It's a lie, I yelled, slamming my hand down on the counter. The sound echoed in the small kitchen. It's all a lie. She's not a freelancer. She's a professional freeloader, and you're her number one enabler. Tears welled in Clara's eyes. How can you say that? She's my sister. My sweet sister. The word sweet was like a lit match on gasoline. Sweet. She's a leech, Clara. A 20-year-old parasite who has learned that all she has to do is sigh about how expensive something is, and her big sister will swoop in and pay for it with her husband's money. My husband, she spat her tears, turning to anger. It was our money. No. It's my time's money now. I'm the only one earning it, remember? While you're on leave, every single dollar that comes into this house comes from me breaking my back, staying up until 2 a.m, stressing about clients and deadlines, all to support my family. And my family is you and Sophia. Not your deadbeat sister. The word hung in the air between us, ugly and final. Clara flinched as if I'd hit her. Her face crumpled. I can't believe you're saying this. I can't believe you're this person. I can't believe you're this blind, I retorted, my voice dropping to a low, cold growl. This stops. All of it. It stops tonight. What are you going to do? She asked, her voice a trembling whisper. Ban her from the house. You can't do that. No. Something much more effective. I took a deep breath, the ultimatum, solidifying in my mind a terrible necessary weapon. You have a choice. Tomorrow, you are going to call Chloe. You are going to tell her the bank is closed. No more money. No more laptops, no more concert tickets, no more covering her bills. You are going to tell her that she is 20 years old and it's time she figured out how to support herself. You tell her to get a real job. Clara stared at me, her mouth slightly open in disbelief. I can't do that to her. It would crush her. Then I'll make the choice for you, I said, the words feeling like ice in my own mouth. If you don't do that, then I'm going to the bank tomorrow morning. I'm taking your name off our joint checking account. I'll open a separate account for you and transfer an allowance for groceries and baby supplies every week. That's it. When you go back to work and start earning your own paycheck again, you can do whatever the hell you want with it. But as long as it's my money supporting this family, not one more cent goes to her. The silence that followed was absolute. It was heavier and more profound than any shouting. Clara's face went from shocked to wounded to utterly devastated. The color drained from her cheeks. She looked at me not as her husband, but as a monster. An allowance, she whispered, the word itself, a poison. You would put me, your wife, the mother of your child, on a times allowance. Times, like a teenager. If that's what it takes to protect our daughter, yes, I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. I felt sick, but I couldn't back down. This was the line. This isn't about protecting Sophia, she said, her voice shaking with a rage so deep it was almost quiet. This is about control. This is about punishing me because you hate my sister. I don't hate your sister, I lied, because in that moment I think I did. I hate what she's doing to us, to you. No. This is you, Mateo. This is all you. She took a shaky step back as if she couldn't stand to be near me. You just threatened to take away my financial freedom 2 weeks after I gave birth to your child. Do you have any idea what you just did? I knew. I knew. It was a catastrophic move, a button you can't unpress. But the dam of my resentment had broken, and this was the flood. In my mind, it was a necessary evil. Chloe needed a shock to the system, and Clara needed to be wrenched from her orbit. It was tough love. It was survival. Clara just stared at me for another long moment, her eyes filled with a kind of betrayal I'd never seen before. Then, without another word, she turned and walked into our bedroom, closing the door softly behind her. It wasn't a slam. A slam would have meant there was still fire. The soft click was something worse. It was an ending. I stood alone in the kitchen, the silence buzzing in my ears. I looked at the phone on the counter at the picture of a ridiculously expensive laptop. Such a small thing to detonate a marriage. From the nursery, I heard Sophia begin to fuss a low whimper that quickly escalated into a cry. A few seconds later, I heard the bedroom door open and close, followed by Clara's soft footsteps heading to the nursery. She was going to our daughter. And I was out here completely alone, the enemy in my own home. I sank onto a kitchen stool, burying my head in my hands, listening to the muffled sound of my wife soothing our child, and I had never felt so right and so terribly catastrophically wrong in my entire life.
Story teen. The crunch of tires on the gravel driveway was what woke me. 2:13 a.m. My heart hammered against my ribs, the same dull panic I'd felt every night for the last 2 weeks. I swung my legs off the couch, the cheap fleece blanket pooling at my feet. I'd been sleeping there, waiting up, pretending I was just watching TV. A lie I told myself so I didn't have to admit my wife was out with someone else. The front door opened. Not with the usual jingle of keys and a tired sigh, but with a clumsy fumbling, a muttered curse, and the heavy thud of the door bumping against the frame. Sarah stood there silhouetted by the porch light. She swayed slightly, her purse dangling from her wrist like a dead weight. The air that rolled in with her was thick with the smell of cheap Chardonnay and a man's cologne I didn't recognize. Sarah, where the hell have you been? My voice was thinner than I wanted. She didn't look at me. She focused on kicking off her heels, each one landing with a soft thud on the hardwood floor. Out. Out where I called you. I texted. I was worried sick. She finally looked up, her eyes glassy and unfocused. There was no apology in them. No concern. Just a kind of flat, defiant exhaustion. I can't do this anymore, Luke. Do what, work late, go out with your friends, and not tell me. What are you talking about? I kept my voice low. Chloe and Ben were asleep upstairs. Us, she said, waving a limp hand around the living room at the photos on the mantelpiece at me. This marriage. It's dead. The words didn't compute. It was like she was speaking a foreign language. Dead? What are you talking about? We had dinner with my parents last Sunday. We were fine. A dry, bitter laugh escaped her lips. Were we? Or were we just playing our parts? I'm not happy, Luke. I haven't been happy for a long time. That was the first shot. The classic line I'd learn later was straight from the Cheater's Handbook. It's designed to make you question your own reality. And you're just telling me this now. At 2 in the morning, drunk, I met someone, she blurted out, the words tumbling over each other. He makes me feel alive. He sees me. I'm leaving. I felt the floor drop out from under me. My vision tunneled. You're leaving? Leaving what? You? The kids. This house. I want to be happy. What about times our times happiness? I choked out, pointing a shaking finger from me to her. What about Chloe? What about Ben? They're 5 and 8, Sarah. They need their mother. Her face hardened into a mask of cold resolve. They'll be fine. They're resilient. It's better for them to have a happy mom living somewhere else than a miserable one living here. She was a stranger. My wife of 10 years, the woman I'd held while she gave birth to our children, was gone. In her place was this hollowed-out replica speaking in soulless self-help cliches. The affair fog. I didn't have a name for it then. All I saw was a monster. She pushed past me and went upstairs. I heard her rummaging in the closet. The sound of suitcase wheels on the floor. I followed my legs, feeling like lead. Don't do this, I begged, standing in the doorway of our bedroom. She was throwing clothes into an open suitcase on the bed, a dress I bought her for our anniversary, a sweatshirt she stole from me in college, our history tossed aside like garbage. Sarah, please. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. Whatever it takes. She stopped a pair of jeans in her hand and turned to me. Why would I want to fix this so we can go back to being miserable? You suffocated me, Luke. I couldn't breathe. She was feeding on my panic, twisting my desperation into a justification for her betrayal. I love you, she said, the words utterly meaningless. But I'm not times and love times with you anymore. She zipped the bag, grabbed her purse, and walked toward the door. I stood in her way. Please. I whispered, tears finally breaking free. Don't leave your kids. I'll call them tomorrow, she said, her voice devoid of any emotion. She looked right through me. Move. I didn't. I couldn't. She sighed, a sound of pure annoyance, and simply pushed me aside. Not a hard shove, just a firm, dismissive pressure on my shoulder that sent me stumbling back a step. It was so casual. So final. I watched from the window as her taillights disappeared down the street. D-Day. The day the world ended. The next month was a blur of humiliation. I was a textbook case. I called. I texted. I left long, rambling voicemails that started with anger and always ended with me pleading. Each call that went to voicemail, each text that was met with a curt one-word reply was a fresh stab in the gut. Asterisk. Please. Just talk to me. Asterisk. I'm busy. Asterisk. The kids are asking for you. Asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. Tell them I'll call later. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk. I miss you. We can get through this. Asterisk. Redate. 1:04 p.m. She'd swing by the house at random times to get more of her things. She never called first. She'd just appear a ghost in her own home, walking through the rooms with a chilling detachment while I followed her like a lost dog begging for scraps of affection. How can you do this? I asked one afternoon, watching her pack a box of books. 10 years. How can you just throw it all away? She didn't even look up. It wasn't all a waste, Luke. We got the kids out of it. The kids. She talked about them like they were a consolation prize from a failed business venture. She wasn't a mother anymore. She was a warden on a weekend pass. She saw them when it was convenient for her, parading them around her new exciting life for a few hours before dropping them back into the wreckage she'd created. My friends told me to stop. My mom told me to get a lawyer. But I couldn't. I was convinced that if I just said the right thing, found the right combination of words, the Sarah I knew would snap out of it. She was in there somewhere behind the fog. The final straw came on a rainy Tuesday, exactly 1 month after she left. I'd found out from a mutual friend where he lived. A generic apartment complex across town. Driving there was the single stupidest thing I've ever done. My hands were slick on the steering wheel. My stomach a knot of dread and pathetic stubborn hope. Her car was there. A knot of relief and nausea tightened in my gut. She was real. This was real. I walked up to the third-floor apartment, the rain soaking through my jacket. I could hear faint music from inside. I knocked. My heart was a drum against my ribs. The door opened. It was her. She was wearing one of my old band t-shirts and a pair of yoga pants. Her hair was messy. She wasn't smiling, but she looked calm, peaceful. The sight of it broke me. "Luke, what are you doing here?" Her voice wasn't angry. It was just tired, annoyed. Like I was a delivery guy with the wrong address. "I had to see you," I said, my own voice cracking. "Sarah, please. I'm begging you. One last time. Come home. We can fix this. I'll do anything." From behind her, a man appeared in the doorway. He was tall, nondescript, and holding a coffee mug. One of ours. The one Chloe had painted for me for Father's Day, with a crooked smiley face and the word Daddy on it. He looked at me, then at Sarah, a smug little smirk on his face. Sarah didn't even flinch. She just looked back at me, her eyes as cold and gray as the storm clouds overhead. "You need to leave," she said, her voice flat. "You're embarrassing yourself." She started to close the door. "Sarah, wait," I cried, putting a hand out. She stopped. The door cracked open just enough for me to see her face. For a second, I thought I saw a flicker of something. Pity, remorse. "You know," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "the hardest part of all this was the first night. But after that, after I left you and the kids and the house, I haven't thought about you once. It's been so quiet." Then she shut the door. The definitive click of the deadbolt sliding into place echoed in the empty hallway. It was the loudest sound I had ever heard. I stood there in the silent beige hallway for a full minute. The rain-soaked jacket felt heavy cold. But I wasn't cold. I wasn't anything. The sound of that deadbolt was the sound of a switch being flipped. The part of my brain that had been screaming, pleading, and hoping for a month just went silent. It's been so quiet. I walked back to my car, got in, and sat there as the rain drummed on the roof. I didn't cry. I didn't punch the steering wheel. I took out my phone, found her contact, and pressed delete. Then I blocked the number. The drive home was different. I saw the traffic lights. I noticed the stores. The fog in my head was gone, replaced by a crystalline, razor-sharp clarity. She hadn't been a victim of some magical affair fog. She was just selfish. The man with my daughter's coffee mug wasn't a soulmate. He was an accessory. And I wasn't a husband fighting for his marriage. I was a fool begging his abuser for another chance. I got home, walked straight into the kitchen, and called my mom. "I'm done," I said before she could even say hello. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." "Don't be," I said. "I'm not. I need the name of that lawyer you mentioned." The next morning, I was in a high-back leather chair across from a man named David Chin. He was all sharp angles and sharper questions. "What's your ideal outcome?" he asked. "The house. Full physical custody of my children. She abandoned them." I laid out the whole story: the drinking, the affair, her exact words. I was calm. Factual. It was like describing a car wreck I had witnessed, not one I had been in. He nodded slowly. "We file tomorrow." With prejudice. The moment the papers were served, her new quiet world erupted. My phone, which I'd unblocked for logistical purposes, started lighting up. Asterisk, asterisk. What the hell is this, Luke? Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. You can't do this. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. You're trying to take my kids. After everything I did for you, asterisk, asterisk. I followed Chin's advice. Gray rock. I only responded to direct questions about the kids, and only with yes, no, or logistical facts. Asterisk. When are you dropping off Chloe's dance bag? Asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk. It's on the porch. Asterisk, asterisk. Her inability to get a reaction out of me drove her insane. The next day, I sat down with the kids to watch a movie. I clicked on Netflix. "Your account has been deactivated." I just laughed. A real, actual laugh. It was so petty. So predictable. She couldn't control me anymore. So she was trying to control my streaming services. I signed up for a new account under my own email. It took 3 minutes. The first time we had to meet in person was at the bank. Her name had to be taken off the mortgage. I got there first, sat at the long mahogany table in the conference room. I wore a suit. I felt powerful in it. She walked in 5 minutes late wearing jeans and a stained sweatshirt. The affair energy, that manic glow she'd had, was gone. She looked tired. Her eyes darted around looking for an angle. A weakness. She found none. "Luke," she said, her voice trying for a softness that wasn't there. "Sarah," I replied, not looking up from the documents in front of me. The loan officer went through the paperwork. It was a tangible consequence. This house times our times house was no longer hers. Her signature was a final act of surrender. I felt her watching me, waiting for me to say something to give her an emotional foothold. I signed my name, pushed the papers back to the officer, and stood up. "I'll see you Friday to pick up, Ben," I said, and walked out without a backward glance. She sat there, a statue of stony silence, trapped in the reality she had created. The divorce proceeding was an epilogue. I was composed. She was a wreck. She sat slumped in her chair, her lawyer doing all the talking. The judge granted the divorce, approved the custody agreement I'd fought for. And it was over. He banged the gavel, and a 10-year chain broke and fell away from my neck. I walked out of that courtroom and didn't look back. I was legally finally free. But the war wasn't over. She had just lost the main battle. Now she would resort to terrorism. It started with the kids. Ben would come home on a Sunday night smelling like cigarette smoke, telling me Mommy's friend Rick was there. Chloe started acting distant. One evening, while I was making dinner, she asked Daddy, "Are you selling our house? Mommy said you're broke and we'll have to move." My blood ran cold. Why would she say that, sweetie? She said to ask you. She said you're probably hiding money. She was using our 5-year-old daughter as a spy, pumping her for information and poisoning her with lies. I knelt down. That's not true, Chloe. This is our home. Always. The week before Ben's 9th birthday, it escalated. She was supposed to drop him off at 6 on Sunday. At 6:30, I called. Voicemail. 700. Voicemail. Panic began to claw at my throat. At 8:15, I got a text. A picture of Ben looking miserable in front of a tacky miniature golf course 3 hours away. Asterisk asterisk. Decided to give him an early birthday trip. Don't worry, we're having fun. Asterisk asterisk. She had kidnapped my son. It wasn't a legal kidnapping, not yet. But it was a violation of the custody order and a direct attack. I called Chen, my voice shaking with rage. We documented everything. She brought him back the next day, 24 hours late, acting as if she'd done us all a favor. Ben was quiet and withdrawn for days. The final front in her campaign of sabotage came through my best friend Mark. He called me on a Thursday night. "Hey man, weird question," he said. "Did you lose your job?" "What? No. Why?" I got a message from Sarah on Facebook." My stomach tightened. "What did she want?" "She said she was worried about you. Said you were struggling financially, that you were about to lose the house. And she wanted to know if I could check in on you. Basically, she was trying to spread a rumor that you're falling apart." He was a good friend. He saw it for what it was. A desperate attempt to isolate me, to shatter the stable life I was painstakingly rebuilding. "Thanks for telling me, Mark." "Of course, man. She's unhinged. You need anything?" "No," I said, looking around the quiet living room at the backpacks by the door and the Lego castle on the floor. "I have everything I need right here." She hadn't broken me. She hadn't won. The marriage was over, the house was mine, the kids were safe with me. All she had left was a scorched earth policy lobbing pathetic grenades from a distance. But I wasn't the pleading man on her doorstep anymore. I was a fortress. And my kids were inside, protected. Let her burn herself out in the wasteland she'd made. We were already home.
Story 11. My dad was a phenomenal father. He was also a truly crappy husband. I know that's a hell of an opener, but there's no other way to say it. He was the guy who taught me how to throw a baseball, how to change a tire, and how to talk to girls without sounding like a complete moron. He was also the guy who cheated on my mother more times than I can count. You can't reconcile those two things. You just have to hold them both in your head at the same time and accept them as true. Growing up, our house was a stage, and my mother was the director. Everything was about appearances. The lawn had to be greener than the Hendersons. The Christmas lights had to be more elaborate than the Garcias. My sisters and I were props. She dressed up in matching outfits for family photos that screamed, "We are perfect, we are happy." It was all a lie. I remember one Saturday when I was about 15. Dad was trying to hang a new ceiling fan in the den. He slipped on the ladder, came down hard, and sliced his arm open on a metal bracket. It wasn't a gusher, but it was bleeding badly. He yelled my name and I came running. Grab the first aid kit from the kitchen, buddy, he said through gritted teeth, pinching the wound shut. I ran into the kitchen. My mother was standing at the counter, calmly arranging a bouquet of lilies in a crystal vase. She didn't even look up. Mom, Dad's hurt. He's bleeding, I said, yanking the kit out from under the sink. Is he getting it on the new rug? She asked, her voice as cool and smooth as the marble countertop. Tell him to use a towel. I just stared at her. Not an ounce of concern. Not a flicker of emotion. My father, the man whose credit card had paid for the rug, the vase, and the goddamn lilies, could have been bleeding out in the next room, and her only concern was the upholstery. That was their marriage in a nutshell. It wasn't a marriage, it was a business partnership. I didn't learn the real terms of their deal until last year when the doctors gave Dad the 6-month warning. Pancreatic cancer. A real son of a bitch. I was sitting by his hospice bed, the room smelling of antiseptic and fading hope. He'd lost so much weight, his clothes hanging off his frame like they belonged to a bigger, healthier man. But his eyes were still sharp, still had that glint of mischief. You know why I never left your mother, David? He asked out of the blue. His voice was a dry rasp. I figured you stayed for us kids, I said. It was the story I'd always told myself. He gave a weak, rattling laugh. That was part of it. At first. But the main reason, blackmail. I felt my eyebrows shoot up. What are you talking about? Early on, maybe 10 years in, I'd had enough, he said, adjusting his oxygen tube. I told her I was done. I was going to file for divorce. She looked me dead in the eye and said, if you do that, I will tell the police, our friends, and our families that you beat me. I'll say you hit the kids, I will destroy you. The air in the room went cold. I couldn't speak. I knew she'd do it, he continued, his gaze fixed on the ceiling. She's a brilliant tactician, your mother. She knew nobody would question a crying woman. And I'd have lost everything. My job, my reputation. You kids. So we renegotiated the terms of our contract. Contract. She got the house, the lifestyle, the social standing. She got to be Mrs. Perfect Wife with the perfect family. In exchange, she looked the other way. She knew about my extracurricular activities. She didn't care as long as I was discreet and the checks cleared on the first of the month. She traded love for leverage. He finally looked at me, and I saw a lifetime of regret and resignation in his eyes. I was a coward, Dave. I should have fought her. But I was young and scared. So I paid her price. And I tried to make up for it by being the best damn dad I could be. He was. He never missed a game. He always had time for my stupid problems. He loved me and my sisters fiercely. A love that felt all the more real and desperate compared to the emotional vacuum of our mother. He wasn't a good man, not in the traditional sense. But he was a good father. The last 2 weeks were a blur of morphine drips and whispered conversations. During that time, he was always scribbling in a worn leather notebook. Sometimes, he'd let out a short, sharp laugh, then wince in pain. What are you writing? I asked him one afternoon. My last will and testament, he coughed, a grim smile playing on his lips. Not the legal one your mom's lawyers have that's sewn up tight. This is more of a spiritual declaration. My side of the story. The day before he died, he called me into his room. My sisters were in the hall crying quietly. He was lucid, frighteningly so. The cancer had eaten away his body, but it hadn't touched his mind. He gestured to a thick, sealed manila envelope on his bedside table. That's for you, he rasped. I picked it up. It felt heavy, important. My name was written on the front in his shaky script. It's my eulogy, he said, locking his eyes on mine. The force of his stare was immense. And you are going to read it at my funeral. Dad, I don't. Dad, I don't. Don't argue with me, he snapped, a flash of his old authority returning. Not now. She's had the microphone for 30 years, David. She's controlled the entire narrative. This is my one chance to set the record straight. My one chance to have the last word. He started coughing a deep, ragged sound that shook his entire body. I held a cup of water to his lips. It's all in there, he whispered when he could speak again. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It's funny. It's vulgar. It's profane. But it's the goddamn truth. And you are going to get up on that podium and you are going to read every single word of it. He grabbed my wrist with a surprising strength. His skin was paper thin, but his grip was iron. Promise me, David, no edits. No chickening out because you're afraid of her reaction. You read it exactly as I wrote it. Promise me you'll honor my last wish. I looked at my father, the man who is both a hero and a villain in my life story. I saw the desperation in his sunken eyes, the plea for one final act of loyalty. It wasn't a request. It was a dying man's last command. I promise, Dad, I said, my own voice cracking. A small, genuine smile touched his lips for the first time in weeks. He squeezed my hand and let go, his energy spent. He closed his eyes and slipped into a sleep he wouldn't wake up from. And I was left standing there holding the bomb he had built, knowing he had just made me the one to light the fuse. The church was suffocating. It smelled of lilies, my mother's choice of course, and performative grief. I stood at the podium, the polished wood cool beneath my trembling hands. The manila envelope felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Out in the pews, I could see my mother dabbing at her dry eyes with a silk handkerchief, the perfect grieving widow. My sisters, Sarah and Chloe, sat beside her, their faces pale and tense. They knew what was coming. I'd shown them the eulogy the night before. I cleared my throat, the sound echoing in the cavernous silence. My father wrote something. I began, my voice unsteady. He asked me to read it. Unedited. I saw a flicker of confusion on my mother's face, quickly replaced by a placid, condescending smile. She probably thought it was going to be some sweet, sentimental deathbed letter. She had no idea. I broke the seal on the envelope and pulled out the folded pages, my father's familiar spiky handwriting staring up at me. I took a deep breath. Showtime. To anyone who's actually sad, I'm gone. Thanks for coming, I read. A few nervous titters rippled through the crowd. To anyone who's just here for the free sandwiches, they're in the back. Try the roast beef. My dad's father, Grandpa Joe, let out a loud snort. My mother shot him a look that could curdle milk. I kept reading. They say you should speak well of the dead. Lucky for you, I'm the one speaking and I can say whatever the hell I want. I was a good father. I was a terrible husband. If you're shocked by that, you haven't been paying attention for the last 30 years. The air in the church shifted. It became heavy charged. I didn't dare look at my mother. I just focused on the words. My marriage to the lovely woman in the front row, you know, the one who looks like she's auditioning for a tragedy, was a masterclass in transactional relationships. She provided the beautiful home and the picture-perfect family. I provided the money. All of it. A collective gasp went through my mother's side of the family. Her parents, my maternal grandparents, looked like they'd been slapped. Early on, I wanted out. She informed me that if I filed for divorce, she would fabricate a story of spousal and child abuse that would ruin my life. It was a brilliant, cold-blooded move. So I stayed. And in exchange for my financial loyalty, she granted me a certain freedom. As long as I was discreet and the mortgage was paid, she didn't care who I spent my nights with. Our marriage wasn't a sacred vow. It was a non-disclosure agreement with a hefty price tag. I paused to turn the page. The silence was absolute. Everyone was staring mouths agape. I risked a glance at my mother. Her face was a mask of white-hot fury. The grieving widow was gone. killer had taken her place. Grandpa Joe was shaking with silent laughter, tears streaming down his face. He caught my eye and gave me a huge approving wink. I soldiered on my voice, gaining strength with every word of my father's truth. She traded love for leverage, and I was too much of a coward to call her bluff. That's on me. I failed as a husband, but I'd like to think I succeeded as a dad. To David, Sarah, and Chloe, you were the only real things in my life. The only part that wasn't a lie. I love you. I finished with his final line. So that's that. Don't cry for me. I'm finally out of the contract. Now somebody get Grandpa Joe a damn whiskey. I folded the papers, placed them back in the envelope, and walked down from the podium. I didn't look at anyone. The walk back to my seat felt a mile long. The service ended abruptly after that. No one else seemed to have anything to say. The fallout was immediate. As people were filing out, my mother cornered me near the vestibule. Her face was contorted with a rage I hadn't seen since Dad dented her Mercedes. You idiot, she hissed, her voice low and venomous. You stupid, selfish boy. You've humiliated me. You've ruined this entire family. I was honoring his last wish, I said, my voice flat. His last wish was to be a vindictive bastard, and you were his little puppet. Her parents flanked her, their faces grim with disapproval. Your father was a philandering pig, my maternal grandmother spat. And you were just like him. He was a good man, Grandpa Joe roared, stepping up to my side. He smelled faintly of the flask I knew he kept in his coat. He was a good man, trapped by a damn vampire, and David here just let a little sunlight into the crypt. My mother ignored him, her eyes boring into mine. This is it, David. This is the last time you will ever speak to me. And you can forget about your sisters. You will never see them again. I will make sure of it. It was her ultimate weapon. The one she'd held over my dad's head his entire life. The threat of taking his children. But she wasn't dealing with my dad anymore. No, you won't, I said calmly. Her eyes narrowed. Just watch me. Right on cue, Sarah and Chloe came and stood beside me. Sarah, 21, and legally her own woman, crossed her arms and stared our mother down. Chloe, a week away from her 18th birthday, looped her arm through mine. That's not going to work anymore, Mom, Sarah said, her voice steady and cold. You don't control us. Chloe leaves for Stanford in August, I added. And I'll be helping her move in. You don't have any leverage. The contract is void. I used Dad's word. Asterisk. Contract. Asterisk. I saw it land. For the first time in my life, I saw my mother look completely and utterly defeated. Her power, the carefully constructed illusion she had maintained for 3 decades, had evaporated in the space of 10 minutes. All she had left was public shame and 3 children who now saw her for exactly what she was. She stared at the 3 of us, a united front she never anticipated. Her mouth opened, then closed. There were no more threats to make. No more cards to play. She turned without another word, her parents trailing behind her like defeated sycophants, and swept out of the church. We stood there for a moment, in the sudden quiet, the 3 of us. The bomb had gone off. The smoke was clearing. Grandpa Joe clapped me hard on the shoulder. Your father would be so damn proud of you, kid, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I nodded, unable to speak. I looked at the faces of my sisters, and I knew I had done the right thing for them for my dad. But as the adrenaline began to fade, a cold, heavy feeling settled in my gut. I had honored my father. I had set his truth free. But I had also detonated our family, leaving nothing but rubble and scorched earth. and I was the one left standing in the wreckage wondering if the cost of one man's final word was worth a lifetime of war.